Next on Corner.
What if Dad was afraid that something was going to happen and he wanted me to piece this whole thing together?
You're being paranoid.
Am I?
Dad sent Julia this folder. It has some secret stuff.
Secret stuff?
They seem to think Dad is corrupt or something.
And some of our families give badges to it.
Kwa nini kwa sababu utamiss fish ama kwa sababu utamiss company yangu?
Fish, yes.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Maybe she won't like me. What if she rejects me? Mommy, and what if something goes wrong?
That's exactly what I wanted to know right now. You're not made of stone, Elena. You still love me. I know it. I felt it in that kiss. You love me.
No, you're mistaken. You forced me to kiss you. Don't get yourself confused like that.
What are you talking about, Dario?
I do not plan on discussing that with you. I have Elena's power absolutely in the palm of my hand, and I can do whatever I please with it.
Oh, yeah? We both know that the only thing you're worried about is being snitched on.
KBC, in collaboration with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is broadcasting enhanced out-of-class learning on radio, television, and online. Catch the lessons every weekday on KBC Channel 1 from 2 to 4 p.m., on KBC English Service and 15 FM from 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Radio Taifa from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. KBC English Service, Radio Taifa, and 15 FM are also available countrywide on the free-to-air Signet digital TV platform, or log on to www.kbc.co.ke for live streaming, or download the KBC Online app on Google Play Store. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, ensuring learning no matter what.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
Top of the morning. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Jain Wambui. As always, we are glad you choose to start your morning with us right here on KBC Channel 1. It is exactly 5 minutes past 7 a.m. And as always, as it is tradition, nothing but the best lined up for you. We have such an informative show coming up in not too long. And just starting on my end of things today. Now, there's so much misinformation going around when it comes to coronavirus disease, what it is, how it is spread, you know, how you can best protect yourself. So much is being said about this on social media, other forms of media, and there's so much misconceptions and untruth that surround coronavirus disease. And so today we are going to be having a solid discussion about coronavirus and what it is, and help you draw a line between fact and fiction and know how you can best protect yourself during this very uncertain times. So if you have any questions, comments that you would like to be addressed in regards to coronavirus, the myths, the facts, and all this untruth that is being said about it, feel free to send them through. We'll be letting you know how you can get in touch with us in not too long. Welcome once again.
Now, this morning we also continue our conversation on the Nairobi Metropolitan. Remember, the President Uhuru Kenyatta had banned movement by road, air or rail in and out of Nairobi Metropolitan area. This ban started on Monday, but effective today, the ban is supposed to start or expected to start in Mombasa, Kilifi and Kwale counties. This is where we have an additional 14% of the country's coronavirus cases that have been recorded so far. This conversation will be coming up in a bit. A very good morning to you. My name is Aguko.
Good morning. Kenyans have woken up to revelations that 17 MPs and senators have tested positive for COVID-19. That is what we have in the dailies. Good morning. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. We're going to be focusing on the domino effect of coronavirus, or what we have come to term as COVID-19.
We continue with the COVID-19 updates on our last segment of the show this morning. And yesterday we were to talk about what the president had mentioned when he restricted movement in the 4 counties, which will do that today. And also part of what he mentioned on his speech on Monday was that everyone now needs to wear a mask if you're going to public spaces, which was also reiterated yesterday by the Cabinet Secretary of Health. So in this wearing of masks that everyone actually now needs to wear when you go to public spaces, that means even when you're using public transport, when you're using motorcycles, you need to wear a mask. And the motorcyclists were coming out to complain that as of now, as you know already, they have the number of passengers that they are carrying has been reduced to only 1, and they themselves, as well as the passengers, also need to wear a mask. A good number of them were saying that as it is, even with carrying 1 passenger, the much they make in a day is probably 50 or 100 shillings, and the masks go for equivalent the amount. So what will be their priority? Is it the wearing of masks, which has been made necessary for everyone to wear, or will they be putting food on the table? That is what we'll be breaking down for you this morning, even as the transport CS continue to say that for those that are not observing these rules and directives that were given for the transport sector, then they risk their licenses being revoked. That is what we'll be looking at this morning on our last segment, COVID-19 updates. Many thanks for joining us on the show this morning. My name is Doreen. Good morning.
Look at the dailies this morning. We have 4 copies with us in studio this morning, and just looking at one of them, you can see that the World Health Organization yesterday revised the guidelines and advised everyone to wear face masks along with sanitizing and washing hands as preventative measures, and of course social distancing as preventative measures when it comes to helping curb the spread of COVID-19. All this and much more about the newspapers will be coming in our segment in the headlines. But for now, do let us know where you're watching us from. Our SMS number is 20154. A name and location is always appreciated, and you can go on to Twitter. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. At KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle, and remember to tag us individually as well. At Aguko, at Manyara, at Doreen, and at Jain Wambui is how you can find us individually across all social media platforms.
Now, without further ado, let us look at those stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours. And is that 14 more positive cases of coronavirus have been reported in the country, bringing the total number of those affected to 172. Of the 14 new cases, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe disclosed that 12 are Kenyans, while the other 2 are foreigners. Amid the rise in number, 3 more people were declared free of COVID-19 after they tested negative for the contagion. But to further curb the spread of the disease, the CS announced tougher actions that include closure of golf clubs in the country. Nancy Okwara reports.
Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe on Tuesday confirmed that more Kenyans have tested positive for coronavirus. The new cases bringing the total of those infected in the country to 172. Half of the new confirmed cases hailing from Nairobi, with more counties such as Manyara recording first cases, joining the list of counties affected.
We have tested 696 samples, out of which 14 people have tested positive for the disease. 12 of the 14 are Kenyans, while 2 are foreign nationals. Mombasa has 2, new ones. Machakos has 1. Kisii has 1. Kiambu has 1. And Mandera has 2 cases.
Acting Director General in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, disclosed that most of the patients are stable, with only 1 under critical care.
This person is doing well. In fact, we have been in contact with the doctors who are taking care of him. And we are looking at a possibility of 1 or 2 days he'll be out of the ventilator.
On this day, the CS announced what will come as good news, as 3 more have been given a clean bill of health from COVID-19. The negative results bring in the total number of recoveries to 7. Kagwe is however cautioning Kenyans against laxity and that the country is not out of the woods yet.
The mortality rate for us has been quite low, but this is no reason for us to be relaxed at all. We are akin to a boat that is sailing towards a massive storm. Let us brace ourselves for bad news.
For this reason, the CS announced further measures targeting playgrounds where a majority of Kenyans have been going for recreational activities.
We have observed in some walking clubs where people are running next to each other, and there is no better way of passing this virus than when they do so. Golf clubs will remain closed, and the clubhouses will remain closed.
In the meantime, the government is set to embark on mass testing of all health workers and those attending to people in the various quarantine zones in the country. So far, nearly 5,000 people have been tested for COVID-19 in the country. With 14 more coronavirus cases having been recorded on Tuesday in the country, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe is calling on Kenyans to be ready and be prepared for tough times ahead, even as he cautioned Kenyans against laxity, owing to the fact that most of the cases being recorded in the country are mild. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
And because we value your feedback and want to keep you informed on what is happening within the country, regionally and globally, KBC Channel 1 is streaming on Facebook as well as YouTube. So if you're not in front of your television set right now, well, you can get online on Facebook, KBC Facebook Live, as well as YouTube on the KBC streamer, and just watch the broadcast of what we have this morning on Good Morning Kenya. Now, a good number of public service vehicle drivers are in police custody for flouting government directives on cessation of movement in and out of Nairobi Metropolitan area. The driver of the vehicles currently is being in various police stations while arrested as they attempted to dodge roadblocks mounted by police by driving off main roads. Now, this coming as some commuters remain stranded on the roads as police enforced the directive banning movement to and from the capital.
The execution of President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive that placed Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi and Kwale counties under partial lockdown after being declared COVID-19 hotspots has left a good number of commuters stranded. The long arm of the law catching up with some public service operators who attempted to defy the decree on cessation of movement. More than 10 vehicles, for instance, were impounded and are currently being held at Lari police station. The vehicles are said to have left Nairobi, heading towards various destinations through undesignated routes as drivers attempted to circumvent roadblocks erected by the police officers. Several commuters appear to have been caught off guard soon after the directive took effect in Nairobi Metropolitan area on Monday. In Limuru, Deputy County Commissioner Charles Mukere noted that the police will implement the directive fully in a bid to combat the spread of the coronavirus.
Magari ya chakula ya mizigo ambayo kwenda kujenga biashara tunaruhusu waende kwa sababu hawezi kumusha nchi yetu kwa sababu ya hiyo, lakini safari za ambazo hazina msingi hazieleweki ndio tunajaribu kuzuia.
On the other hand, most travelers plying the Nairobi-Mombasa highway chose to avoid trouble as they turned back at a police roadblock mounted at Lukenya.
Kutoka huko jana saa 2 kutoka Kakamega
Tumekuja na gari kufika Nairobi, tukapita mzuri. Kufika Athi River, gari karipika. Tukahitaji msaada, ikawa msaada imeshindikana. Mpaka tumelala pale Athi River mpaka asubuhi.
Machakos Police Commander Karanja Muriuri said that his team also made sure they manned access points that have previously served as escape routes.
They were told to stay at Nairobi, not to come in Machakos. So we are telling them to go back to Nairobi.
Shida ni wenye wanatembea kwa miguu, wanapita kwa kando ya daraja, na kwa sasa tunaongeza maafisa wa polisi kwamba nafikiria tutawazuia.
Hiyo masaa alipitisha, angetupea hata at least angetupea like leo ama kesho, aseme sasa hiyo kitu itakuwa effective from Wednesday. At least ametupea allowance, tumejipanga.
In Kisii, residents insist that a ban on free movement in and out of the capital will deal them a major blow as their businesses will come to a halt.
Ni heri tuchukue hii sheria ndogo ndogo kabla tuchaenda zile za lockdown. Lockdown ni mbaya zaidi. Wacha avatari hii quarantine na curfew ya saa 1 mpaka saa 11.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Aching Oma.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta is urging Kenyans to follow protective guidelines issued by the Health Ministry on coronavirus to prevent further spread of the deadly disease. Now, speaking on KBC affiliate Shoro FM, the head of state said he is not willing to lock Kenyans in their houses unless the corona pandemic worsens. The president explained the drastic measures announced on Monday, targeting Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi counties where necessary, and aims at reducing the spread of the disease to other counties.
A day after President Uhuru Kenyatta put Nairobi, Kilifi, Mombasa and Kwale counties under containment, restricting entry and exit of persons in and from the 4 counties, the head of state would invite 3 Kikuyu FM stations at State House for a live interview. The president taking the chance to explain the decision to control movement of people to and from the 4 counties, which he says aims at reducing chances of coronavirus spreading to other counties.
Na kwigitira ri ni kugitira kinya ciana ciaku, kinya mutumia waku, kinya aciari aku, kinya ona aria murigainie nao, neguo ni kugitira othe.
To protect means you protect everyone around you. That is the only medicine. If we don't change the way we live, we can see what we are seeing in UK or America. You can see even the UK Prime Minister is in ICU.
Kana uria tuiguire China, kana uria turona America, kana uria turona kinya bururi wa kuria Ngeretha, Great Britain, ni murona kinya na Prime Minister wa intensive care.
President Uhuru Kenyatta directing security agents manning roadblocks to allow persons who have genuine reasons to cross over, insisting the containment aims at reducing mass movements of people.
Ona gikorwo ni tuhingite andu kuingira na kuma kuria tuhingite neguo ni turoiga atiriri.
Those bringing food or coming to Nairobi to buy goods will not be restricted. We want life to continue. The restriction does not aim to torture people.
Na shoke na arute tondu ni turenda wira uthie na mbere. Tutingiwa ni twahinga ati kinya irio kana ki ati andu matingihota guthie kugura irio na marehe nigetha mendie. Maundu macio ti mahingiririe neguo kuhinga uria tuhingite ti kuhinyiriria andu ni kugitira andu mundu wina bata na mundu wina gitumi ithwe wira witu ni guteithia mundu ucio ahingie wira uria egukite gwika na hote kuinuka.
Pleading with his residents of Central Kenya to follow preventive directive issued by Health Ministry, President Uhuru Kenyatta said the fight against coronavirus calls for concerted efforts. The president said the prevention was the only way to avoid the scenarios being witnessed in Europe and America. The head of state said he is not willing to lock Kenyans in their houses unless the corona pandemic worsens.
Andu aitu ni turutithanie wira uyu hamwe. Ni tuteithanie. Ni twitikire kurumirira mawatho maria turaheo
ICU. My people, let's work together to eliminate coronavirus. Follow what Minister Mutahi Kagwe is saying. Because if it gets worse, we have no option but lockdown. As a government, we don't want a lockdown. But people must follow what the Ministry of Health directs.
Nituroiga tutirenda kuhinyiriria andu aitu nituroiga niturenda andu mahote guthie na mbere na maundu mao no nginya nao matie mikakati iria yikiritwo ni Ministry of Health.
At the same time, the president reprimanded Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi for defying self-quarantine measures, thereby spreading the disease. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Now, the government has erected 14 roadblocks across Mombasa, Kilifi and Kwale counties ahead of the implementation of a partial lockdown in the region beginning this Wednesday evening, tonight rather evening. The development coming as transporters, traders and commuters appeal to the county and national governments to consider providing them with basic commodities to cushion them from possible adverse effects of the lockdown.
Half-packed inter-county bus terminus characterized terminuses in Mombasa County on Tuesday. Transporters, traders and commuters bracing for worse days ahead as the 21 travel ban takes effect beginning Wednesday 7 p.m.
Ndio wametuambia kwamba kuanzia kesho hakuna magari. Je, wale tulio na manyumba tunatakana kulipa, tutafanyaje? Angalau hata kama wangeruhusu magari matano ya kutoka tu yaende kaunti za Voi ili ya kwamba nasi tupate kujimudu kwa kitu kingine.
Around 95% kazi yangu itakuwa down. I'm so affected. Hata hii mambo ya kafyu ya kuanzia saa 1 hakuna magari, nimko affected by 70%.
The group pleading with the government to lift the inter-county ban and consolidate the 3 counties into one area to ease movement and give businesses a respite as well as avail basic commodities.
Kama ingewezekanika ingekuwa hizi kaunti 3 zinaweza zikashirikiana, ikawa mtu anaweza akatoka kaunti nyingine kama ni Kilifi County mpaka Mombasa County, kwa sababu shughuli nyingi za watu wa Malindi lazima wafike Mombasa County. Naomba serikali iangalie pande zote mbili, isiumize mwananchi, isijikubalie hiyo yenyewe. Kwa hivyo tuomba rais, kama ni msaada uwe wa kila mtu.
Meanwhile, governors from Kilifi, Mombasa and Kwale are scheduled to hold a meeting to discuss possible scenarios in the wake of the partial lockdown directive. Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi says county administrators have already set aside emergency relief funds for the residents.
Tuzungumze na serikali ya kitaifa ili tuone ni vipi wale watu ambao wanaishi katika kaunti jirani na wanafanya kazi katika kaunti nyingine, ni vipi ambavyo tunaweza kuwawezesha ili kuendelea kwenda katika makazi yao na kuendelea kupata pato.
Coast Regional Commissioner John Elongata says whereas the movement of parcels within the counties is not prohibited, residents are advised to stay indoors until the risk of COVID-19 pandemic is contained.
Ukikaa kwako hayatatoka pale yaende kwa mwingine ama hayatakupata. Na nafikiria hizo siku 21 zinatosha kupunguza haya maambukizi.
Elongata saying 14 roadblocks have already been erected across the 3 counties as the government moves to enforce the 21-day directive that will see cessation of movement across the 3 coastal counties.
Nobody should be worried about the roadblocks. Roadblocks are not meant to harass anybody. They're just meant to enable us to implement government directives.
Following government's directive to restrict movements in these 3 counties of Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi, as from tomorrow, residents living in the northern coast of Mombasa won't be allowed into Mombasa County past the Mtwapa Bridge. And for the residents living in the southern coast of Mombasa won't be allowed into Mombasa County past the Shikadabu roadblock. Therefore, members of the public have been urged to effectively plan for the 21-day ban, which takes effect. Reporting for Channel 1 News from Mombasa County, I'm Michael Mondiga.
Now, so many questions have been asked. Why did Mombasa and Kwale counties be given time while Nairobi was locked in immediately? Well, maybe the question is, how easy is it to travel from Mombasa, Kwale to other parts of the country? Maybe that was the reasoning behind it, but the lock-in takes effect tonight at 7 p.m. Now, traders and motorists have decried the cessation of movement in and out of Nairobi, saying the latest government directive has left them stranded in the capital, as well as cutting off their only means of earning a living. This concerns coming a day after President Uhuru Kenyatta declared Nairobi, Kilifi, Kwale and Mombasa counties as COVID-19 hotspots, restricting movement in the 4 counties.
Tuesday morning, Nairobi Central Business District, location Accra Road. We make a stop at TSS Sacco bus terminal. We meet Penina Agira, who was on transit to Busia from Mombasa alongside her children. A visibly dejected Agira is in despair.
Nimetoka sehemu za Mombasa kuanzia saa 12 asubuhi jana. Tulisafiri mpaka tukafika Nairobi hapa saa 9. Sasa kufika hapo gari likwama kabisa, walisema gari hawezi kuendelea na safari. Sasa tumekuwa hapa na watoto, hatuna la kusema la kufanya. Tumekuwa hapa sasa, tuomba tu tuweze kutusaidia.
She is stranded. She has been here since Monday 3 p.m. shortly before President Uhuru Kenyatta announced the ban on travel in and out of Nairobi.
The cessation of movement within the Nairobi.
Agira's troubles are much the same as those of dozens of other Kenyans who are affected by the directive.
Kukula kwangu kunategemea barabara. Kwa saizi nafanyia Narok. Lakini familia yangu inaishi hapa Nairobi. And by the way nilikuja kuwasalimia, nirudi niende kazi yangu. Sasa nimefungiwa, sijui watakulaje kwa sababu sijaenda. Mimi ndio gala.
This is Accra Road. On a normal day, this bus terminal has vehicles ferrying passengers to and from Nyeri, Nakuru, Nanyuki, Kerugoya. But since the restriction of movement order came into effect, now the buses that are here at the terminal are ferrying passengers within Nairobi. This situation is replicated in various terminals in the capital where public service vehicles headed for the upcountry normally operate from. The affected public service vehicle operators already are feeling the full weight of this directive.
Serikali imesema magari isafiri kwenda ushago. Tunaona kama njaa itatua juu corona tuioni. Ni njaa itatua ndio tumeanza kuona sasa.
Sisi vijana wengi hapa kama unavyoona hawa vijana wote ni watu ambao tunategemea kupata riziki kutokana na mabasi. Sasa hizi tunaambiwa hakuna usafiri, hakuna kupakia abiria, hakuna kuteremsha abiria. Sisi sasa sijui tutafanya nini ndio tupate riziki. Tunaambiwa kwanza lockdown inakuja, hata kabla tufike kwa lockdown. Hizo siku 21 mimi ni mtu ambaye nifanye kazi leo nipate 200 niende kulisha familia yangu leo.
Wametumiwa pesa kwa wizi. Chakula ya kukula. Lazima tukuje asubuhi tuatolee na ile inaendelea na kukuja ndio asiumie.
The sentiments resonating well with those of traders operating from these locations.
Ninapokuja ninaenda na sabuni, naenda nimenunua mboga, chakula napata. Sasa hii nimekuja na kilo 2 ya njugu na kuanga hoka. Sijauza hata mtu mmoja, nitauzia nani? Kila mtu ana pesa. Tunategemeanga hao watu wana travel ndio tunawauzia. Yaani maisha yetu imekuwa mwisho.
Mtu aliregister huduma namba. Atumedo kwa account yake na to keep off janga juu imekuwa ni too much.
The story is different for those in food supplies and other cargo as their businesses went on as usual. But truck drivers claim even though the directive doesn't affect them, authorities still frustrate their activities.
Hizi lori zinabeba maparcel, mzigo na chakula. Na kitu kama hiyo gari imesimama pale na imebeba machungwa. Sasa unajua ile joto ya mizigo zingine ile machungwa itaharibika pale.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Sentiments there from a section of Kenyans who argue that hunger is what will kill them and not COVID-19. Just a reminder is that COVID-19 so far has claimed over 1.3 million people across the world. So in as much as hunger could also definitely kill you, so will COVID-19 if you do not adhere to the precautionary measures laid down. Now, as the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases continue to rise in the country, national and county governments have continued to put stringent measures in a bid to stem the spread of the pandemic. In Nairobi, youth-led organizations appear to have taken up the challenge presented by the Health Cabinet Secretary, requiring them to be more proactive in efforts aimed at combating the pandemic, setting up hand-washing stations in Mathare and Kibera informal settlements.
Ongoing efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 received a shot in the arm Tuesday when youth groups responded to calls by Health Cabinet Secretary to take lead role in ongoing campaigns. Youth groups drawn from Nairobi County partnering with UN Habitat, which will provide financial and logistical support to set up 10 hand-washing stations in some of the informal settlements. UN Habitat Executive Director Maimuna Mod Sharif says the facilities will be overseen by youth attendants from respective communities who will assist residents who often have no piped water supply in their homes on best hand-washing practices. Meanwhile, a 165-strong international group, including 92 former presidents and prime ministers, along with the current economic and health leaders in the developed and developing world, have come together to demand the creation of a G20 executive task force and an immediate global pledging conference which would approve and coordinate a multi-billion-dollar coronavirus fighting fund. In an open letter addressed to G20 leaders, the group, which wants both to speed up the search for a vaccine, cure and treatments, and revive the global economy, urges global collaboration and commitment to funding far beyond the current capacity of the existing international institutions.
Cases in the region. Yeah, we have 2 cases in Nakuru. Just by looking at this.
And a regional COVID-19 command center linking all the 14 counties of Rift Valley region has been unveiled in Nakuru. Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembeya says operations of the command center will be overseen by officers drawn from relevant national and county governments departments, including security, administration, public health, and social services.
Basically, we get all the reports concerning COVID-19 from our respective county commissioners every morning and every evening. The information that the county commissioners relay is not just from them. They have multi-agency teams that they're working with, including the police, as she has correctly put, including health officials, people who are directly involved in this war that we are waging now. So the information that they bring here is verified and is accurate.
Elsewhere, churches in Kisii County have been warned against resuming worship services lest they contravene anti-coronavirus measures being implemented by the government. Kisii Central Deputy County Commissioner Leonard Mugote says they have received intelligence reports indicating that some church leaders had instructed their counterparts at the grassroots to resume routine spiritual services at their respective churches.
Kuna baadhi ambao wameandika barua kuambia viongozi wao huku mashinani ya kwamba watu waende makanisani ila waeke ile nafasi ya mita 1.5 kwa kila mmoja. Hilo tangazo ni potovu. Bado serikali haijaruhusu makanisa yafunguliwe. Kwa hivyo makanisa yabaki kama yamefungwa, Jumamosi yale ya Sabato na Jumapili yale mengine mpaka hali ya corona itakapodhibitiwa.
Meanwhile, Mandera Governor Ali Roba has asked the national government to avail COVID-19 testing equipments at county hospitals. The call coming after 2 persons from the region tested positive for coronavirus.
We urge the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, to consider approving KEMRI to establish a sample collection center in Mandera now that the flights have been banned. And we have COVID-19 cases, 2 of them reported now to have happened.
Retired Archbishop Raphael Ndingi Mwananzeki was laid to rest at the Holy Family Minor Basilica in Nairobi yesterday in a private ceremony that was only open to his close family members, priests, bishops, and a section of the political class. The late retired cleric, who died at the age of 89, was laid to rest in a crypt in the basement of the church in line with the Catholic Church customs.
A solemn mood engulfed Holy Family Basilica in Nairobi as the Catholic Church and the nation at large bid farewell to retired Archbishop Ndingi Nzeki, who served the Catholic Church for 50 years as a priest and a bishop. John Cardinal Njue leading the Requiem Mass for the retired Archbishop at Holy Family, which served as an area of his jurisdiction from 1997 to 2007, when Ndingi retired.
That one day we shall see Archbishop Raphael Ndingi again and enjoy his friendship.
The burial ceremony that saw invited persons observe social distance in line with the government directive to combat the spread of coronavirus also saw those allowed to receive the Eucharist pick it from designated points to reduce possible spread of coronavirus.
Into your presence, so that he may enjoy eternal life and peace and be raised up in glory with all your saints. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Before the burial at the church basement, the clergy directed that only bishops would be allowed at the site of interment after the Mass. Born on December 25, 1931 in Manyara village in Mwala location in Machakos County, the late Ndingi Nzeki served in priesthood for close to 6 decades after quitting his teaching job as a P3 teacher. He has been hailed as a charitable cleric who helped victims of hunger and drought, especially during the 1999 famine, which affected sections of the country.
He fought for the innocent, for the persecuted, for the least in the society. Let us all, therefore, in emulating him, learn how to place the fate of others before our own, and we shall be the good leaders and persons that this world is asking for.
Among his attributes, he was kind, sometimes stubborn, a firebrand who was deeply spiritual. Here lies a patriot who loved God, church, and country.
Almighty and merciful God, that as you made your servant, Archbishop Raphael Ndingi, an ambassador for Christ on earth, so you may raise him, purified by this sacrifice, to be seated with Christ in heaven, who lives and reigns forever and ever.
Ndingi will be remembered for having fought for the oppressed in the society and playing crucial roles in development of education. For Channel 1 News, I'm Gladys Mongai.
Over to the courts, where the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordin Haji, is pushing for maximum possible penalty for the Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi over alleged deliberate spreading of the coronavirus after he did not self-isolate himself after a trip abroad. According to Haji, the Deputy Governor committed a serious crime by failing to adhere to set guidelines, thereby exposing the people of Kilifi to risk. Now, Saburi was arrested at the Coast General Hospital Friday after he was reported to have recovered from COVID-19 disease.
The woes of Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi began upon his return from a trip from Germany after he allegedly refused to quarantine himself for the mandatory 14 days. Saburi, who would later be diagnosed with COVID-19 disease, was forcefully quarantined. His arrest at the Coast General Hospital Friday came soon after he was given a clean bill of health. The Director of Public Prosecution Nordin Haji said he will be pushing for stiffer sentencing for Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi for what he termed as ill intent on the part of the Deputy Governor.
It was a serious crime in our opinion. He has resulted in quite a number of people being infected or suspected to be infected, and he has to face the law. If anybody, including the police or prosecutors or the magistrates, break the law, they will face the law, especially in relation to the COVID pandemic.
Doreen Haji says Saburi intentionally contravened the government's directive to self-isolate. Saburi has since apologized for his actions, saying he is remorseful for the panic he has caused to the people of Kilifi County. He is being held at Port Police in Mombasa as he awaits a ruling on whether he will still be held for 14 days at Manyara GK prison or released on bond Thursday. Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.
Now, speaking matters business is that Treasury has halved its economic growth projection for this year to 3%, warning that the figure may fall further depending on the length of the COVID-19 situation. The National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Okur Yatani has also added that the Kenya Revenue Authority is set to lose more than 150 billion shillings once the new taxation measures come into force. President Uhuru Kenyatta directed tax cuts to cushion Kenyans from the impact of coronavirus.
The coronavirus pandemic is likely to have a major impact on the Kenyan economy, not only in the year 2020, but in a couple of years to come. And according to statistical evidence presented by various quarters, the economy is likely to register its weakest growth in more than 15 years, or worse, sink into a painful recession. In the last 4 months, Kenya's economy has been battered by serious headwinds caused by the coronavirus pandemic and the locust invasion that now threatens food security. But it is the COVID-19 pandemic that is likely to have major bearing on the economic growth this year. In the year 2020, Treasury was projecting the economy to expand by 6.5% after expanding by 5.6% in 2019, but this has now been revised.
This year we are looking at a growth of about 6% of GDP, but this will drastically drop to about 3 or even less. But we are going to give a firm figure when we'll have taken it on board, the impact of this maybe in the next 1 month.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani says disruption in supply chain for key inputs and tourism, as well as reduced business activity, will negatively impact the country's projected growth. At 3% economic growth, this would be the slowest growth in the last 10 years. Speaking when he received 2 billion shillings recovered from graft, the CS further said the Kenya Revenue Authority will miss its revenue target by a big margin this year due to suppressed economic activities.
The net import of the incentives will result in 272 billion revenue loss for Kenya per year. So if you are looking at 3 months, then you are looking at a figure of about 60 billion.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is targeting a further 8 billion shillings from sleaze that will go towards the fund. Government ministries will have to operate with tighter budgetary allocations this year as the country channels most resources to fight the pandemic. Treasury is expected to table a revised supplementary budget to the National Assembly once it resumes its sittings next week.
We are also now going to reallocate funds from travels, funds from some development projects, so that we can now manage. And moving forward, it's clear that our revenue streams are going to shrink. By how much, we're still studying.
Treasury will also have to shave development votes as it struggles to deal with the crisis. O'Brien Kimani for Channel 1.
Beginning of the year, growth projections in as far as the macroeconomic situation in the country was pegged at 6%. Now, in light of COVID-19, it has been halved to 3%. Now, farmers in Nakuru County are proposing a stimulus package that will, among others, include tax breaks on farm inputs, as well as enable them replenish food reserves and safeguard livelihoods to avert looming food shortage during the coronavirus pandemic. Farmers argue that demand for food is sharply rising, especially in urban settlements, and this could drain their farm granaries.
Unpredictable weather patterns, lack of proper mechanization coupled with poor information available to farmers have been cited as major contributors to declining agriculture sector productivity. This year, however, Kenya's quest to attain food security has further been compromised by persistent desert locust invasion. That notwithstanding, demand for food in urban centers has now surged by panic shopping as Kenyans continue stocking up amid COVID-19 uncertainties.
Lazima tufikirie post COVID-19. Baada hii janga ikiisha, shida ya vyakula itakuwa namna gani?
However, while April ushers planting season, at this time farms lay fallow as many say they cannot afford farm inputs and labor required this season.
Sana sana tunakuza nyanya, tunakuza boga, tunakuza mishiri. Na sasa hivi chenye tunakuza haiendi mahali. Na still tunalima mahindi na maharagwe. Ile ya saa hii tumekosa tinga za kulima, mbegu za kulima, ndio pesa hatuna. Sasa hata shida yetu ni kama hii ugonjwa ukiisha hatujui tutafanya nini.
Gathoni has now resorted to exchanging last season's crop worth 100,000 shillings for labor and seeds on her 2-acre piece of land. She's also using this method to raise money for a technician to make over her modest irrigation facility. Meanwhile, on Gishia Thura's tomato farm, tomatoes are huddling but rotting.
Tungepewa fertilizer, mbegu za kupanda, tungeweza kudhibiti. Tunapanda at the profit time na tunavuna mavuno mazuri, tunaweka kwa mastore. Watu kama hao wako kwa town tuwadhibiti na chakula.
While Gitonga's modest dairy farm of 15 pedigree cows that has yet to break even is recording losses.
Normally around this time niko nakamua 30 liters. Nilikuwa nauza hapa Gilgil town 50 shillings per liter. Now hakuna bahari ya kuuza maziwa.
All three farmers are hoping that the government, both at the county and national level, will roll out a stimulus package that includes tax breaks on farm inputs and cushion them from imminent losses.
Tuone wakulima are enabled. There are stimulus programs na ziko na ni nyingi.
Obiletu kwa serikali ni angalau waone kama watatusaidia na mbegu, fertilizer ya kupanda na tinga za kulima.
Regina Manyara Guitar reporting for Channel 1 Business.
This comes at a time when Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven economy. Farmers there saying that they need an economic stimulus to cushion them in these uncertain times, given the sharp rise in need, or rather demand for foodstuffs. We hope that the relevant authorities indeed will look into that. Now, crossing over to matter sports, is that the Kenya Table Tennis Association has indefinitely postponed its 2020 calendar of activities until the current coronavirus pandemic is under control. The decision was taken by the association to ensure safety of players, officials and fans. While making the announcement, the Kenya Table Tennis Association chairman Andrew Modibo said that the association will continue to monitor the situation on a daily basis, encouraging players to stay at home but also carry out light training to keep fit. KTTA was hoping to hold a revamped Kenya Open this year by inviting top-rated players in the world after successfully hosting the ITTF Africa Top 16 Cup in 2018. The association is, however, hopeful that the global pandemic will be contained soon. Now, that brings us to a couple of matters and news that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours, but we're not done with our live broadcast. Remember, we are bringing you this broadcast live also on our social media platforms, on YouTube as well as Facebook Live. So if you're not in front of your television set, well, then you can get online. Besides, they say that tech is a way to go. Now we cross over to the other side of the studio with Doreen Arange as she takes us through the People's Daily this morning in the headlines. Up next.
In the headline segment starts right now, and as usual, we begin with the People's Daily. So this is the front page of that newspaper. This is the People's Daily. The caption: panic as 17 MPs test positive for corona. There are fears the numbers could rise with more of the with more of the 52 whose names had been submitted to Health Ministry for testing set to get their results today. And tomorrow, even as Senate Speaker Lusaka declines to confirm or deny this report of whether 17 MPs had actually tested positive for this disease. This story written in detail from page 2 all through page 12. Also on the same front page, there's a bite from the CS. Measures painful but necessary, says the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe. On the sidebar, some of the myths and misconception of this disease. Remember, this is a discussion that will be coming on later with Jain. She will be telling us. She'll be having a discussion concerning this myths and misconception about this disease. Just read two of them. One of them is that vaccines will be tested on Africans. Says that no vaccine has yet been discovered by scientists for the virus. There's another one that black skin is resistant to COVID-19. So these are just some of the myths and misconceptions being dispelled by people. But like I mentioned, Jain will be having this discussion a bit later. Still, thousands stranded in travel ban chaos. Remember, there was a locking of 4 counties. Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi begins today. Nairobi began on Monday. And so there's an image here of commuters who are stranded after this ban came in. And so these commuters who are stranded at Chania River Bridge as police enforce the ban of movement in and out of Nairobi Metropolitan area. All right, so sticking with that ban, thousands stranded as travel ban takes effect. Police mount roadblocks at border points in affected counties, sparking confusion among commuters. So there was frustration and confusion. Marked the first day of the government's ban on the movement of vehicles in and out of Nairobi metropolitan area to prevent the spread of coronavirus. This caused thousands of inbound passengers being blocked at major entry points. So some of those that were affected include travelers from Mount Kenya region, those that were traveling to the city from Ukambani, Rift Valley, Western Kenya, as well as those from the coast region. Remember, this move came on Monday. The president saying that there's just some of the moves there's just some of the directives to see how best they can mitigate the spread of this disease. There's also a bite from the president where he said that there's a choice we were asked to make as government and as a people to carry on as normal or treat this like the extraordinary that it is. So of course these moves were just some of the extraordinary moves that the government had to bring forth to ensure they contain this disease. Upcountry Matatu plying Nairobi routes suspend services. So the public service vehicles, these are the PSVs that ply in and out to Nairobi metropolitan area, as of yesterday, grounded their service on movement took effect. So these buses were parked at railway station. These, of course, the buses that go on long distance route. There's an image of Easy Coach there. Some of the buses like Ena Coach, Modern Coast, they had to park because then again, movement has been restricted from Nairobi going to other parts. And so this company opted plan for 9 days. Others opted to return fares to their customers who had booked prior. But for those that are rescheduled the travel plan for 90 days, this move was not well welcomed by the travelers as they opposed this move because they demanded a refund of their fare. So these are just some of the public service vehicles that had to cancel trips because then again, like I mentioned, they could no longer move out of Nairobi. This was after the directive that was given by the president on Monday. Now, if you watched the presser yesterday from the CS, more of what he kept saying is that brace yourself for tougher times. Okay, so brace for tough times. CS Kagwe warns Kenyans. So the CS announces measures which include closure of golf clubs and enforcement of social distancing. So the CS told Kenyans yesterday to brace for tougher times ahead in the fight to tame coronavirus spread as 14 more cases were confirmed yesterday. And as he was addressing the nation yesterday, he announced further measures, which of course included immediate closure of golf clubs, and enforcement of social distancing at open sporting clubs, saying that Kenyans must adhere to these guidelines to tame the coronavirus. And of course, what he mentions is that if Kenyans not adhere, then these tough measures or stringent measures will be put in place. This is just to see how they can contain this disease, because as it is really widely spreading here in the country. Also, Uhuru wants Kilifi deputy governor handed 10 years in jail. This was also one of the stories that was making headlines in the news this morning. And so the president says that Saburi acted recklessly by defying self-quarantine directives. And this is why the president wants him to be jailed for 10 years. It continues to say that Uhuru pleaded with the courts to jail Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi for 10 years for recklessly infecting people with flu that has continued to spread. Of course, this is the corona virus. So we wait to see how that will go. How this case will go. Will he be jailed? Will it just be those cases of back and forth? We wait to see how that will pan out. Still, there's also another case that has really been making scientists to wonder, and this is in regards to the number of males that are contracting this disease compared to their female counterparts. Strange coronavirus trend on gender puzzles scientists. In Kenya, as it is the case across the world, more men than women have fallen victim to COVID-19 infections. So as the coronavirus continues to cause havoc across the world, emerging statistics show that the virus, besides killing more elderly people, which have been more prone to this disease, more men than women are dying. And so it has become a concern to scientists, trying to wonder why this is the case. However, scientists have not pointed out the exact reason for this. For the reason of why more males than females are contracting this disease. But some arguments are coming out, and they are indicating that it may boil down to biology, lifestyle, and behavior. So scientists think that the reason why more men are contracting this disease than their female counterparts, it could be because of biology, lifestyle, and behavior. But we'll continue to sample more of the stories that are making headlines, the People's Daily. But before we get to do that, Jane.
Now have a quick look at the Daily Nation, and just starting with the front page on the Daily Nation. This is in regards to the new advice that was put out by the World Health Organization, advising, and this was yesterday, the World Health Organization is said to have reviewed its terms when it came to the use of face masks, saying that they are now advising everyone to wear masks in addition to other measures like washing hands and observing a social distance. And of course, the first 10 pages here are all about an update on what is happening in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya and globally speaking as well. And just opening the Daily this morning, the Daily Nation, when you get into the first page of the update, it talks about the Kagwe's words, Health CS, brace yourself for coming storm, as he warned and cautioned Kenyans, speaking after the new 14 cases that were announced yesterday, bringing the total to 172 confirmed. And he did say that we should expect the number to shoot drastically as mass testing for all employees who are working in hospitals and quarantine centers begins. Now, so far, he says they have tested 4,922 people in the country, and in the next couple of months, the government will continually review measures in regards to the situation as it continues to up steps when it comes to the testing of COVID-19. And speaking of testing of the coronavirus, there has been some steps, or rather progress that has been made when it comes to the testing of COVID-19. And just still looking in regards to the national update on COVID-19, there has been a breakthrough where officials at KEMRI are saying that they have now the machines that they have will now be able to run at least 5,000 tests a day. The new tech at KEMRI is set to enable Kenya to have a smooth time during the mass test for the virus. And these are are machines that were previously used to test for HIV and TB, and they are going to be converted to, or rather switched to now be able to test for COVID-19. And of course, this will be enforced with assistance from the World Health Organization Emergency Center and the World Bank. And this will up testing from the current at least 600 tests per day to at least 35,000 samples in 24 hours, given that they have these machines in all 7 government testing centers, including KEMRI centers in Busia, Kisumu, and Kilifi. There is also one at the Kenyatta National Hospital here in Nairobi, another one at the Coast General Hospital in Mombasa, and another one at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret. All these are set to help mass testing and, of course, confirm those cases who are suspected in light of COVID-19. And they're said to be giving accurate results in 45 minutes. So this will definitely be a step when it comes to mass testing in the fight against coronavirus.
Now, on the Star this morning, and I'm sure if you're on social media, indeed, this is a pullout of the Star that has been making headlines since yesterday night when this copy, or rather the front page, was made available on social media platforms, especially Twitter. That is alarm as 15 MPs and senators test positive for COVID-19. That's the front page. The story continues to page 2, and I just want to read an excerpt of that particular article there. Is that the speaker retaliated. This comes at a time when Kenyans are already asking that these 7 MPs and senators' identities be made public so that Kenyans can know exactly who. Some saying that if Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Britain, has said that he is indeed COVID-19 positive and he's in ICU, then who are we as Kenyans to keep these names hidden, or rather secret? So in regard to that, this article has actually just kind of answered that question, and it says that the speaker retaliated, that is the Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka, has discounted claims that the rumors saying that it was not easy to tell the condition of the members unless they personally said so, as the results were issued privately. The speaker retaliated that they called off the sittings following the declaration of cessation of movement in Nairobi and its environs by President Uhuru Kenyatta. People should not spread uncalled for rumors that that was a voluntary testing and that the results were given to the person who has been tested. Well, this continues to be one of the stories, especially that is developing. I'm sure several media houses are going to be following up on that amid outcry, especially from the general public, to just want to know exactly who are these 17 MPs and senators and where did they hail from, with some Kenyans even on social media saying that these persons should seek medical treatment, not in Nairobi, not in the posh hospitals as the case, but they should go down to their constituents. I don't know how that augurs, if it augurs well with the current no movement or cessation of movement in and out within the Nairobi Metropolitan area. Just to tie it up, the issue of COVID-19 is that Manyara already reported first 2 cases of COVID-19, and a family is quarantined. That is a mother and son, a woman 22 and her brother, who is 20, who arrived in Manyara on April from Nairobi aboard the Marker bus. This comes at a time when the authority is also following up on any person who was on board that particular bus on the 1st of March 2020. So the authorities are still trying to trace those contacts, while at the same time, yesterday, is that Senate, and or rather the day before yesterday, the Senate and Parliament suspended its sittings indefinitely following the cessation of movement within the Nairobi metropolitan area, announcement made by Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, in a story that this morning carried on the Star, is that the state needs 150 billion shillings to cushion the poor. This is according to the Parliament Budget Office, that says non-essential expenditure should be channeled to this. Now, the office said that the measures announced so far by President Uhuru Kenyatta have left out the most at-risk populations and sectors that drive the economy. It said that the money should be channeled towards helping laid-off workers and eligible self-employed persons in the informal sector. There have been calls by Wanjiko for government to just pay more attention to SMEs and those who might have been taking pay cuts or even just sent home because of the COVID-19, and they need to be cushioned at the end of the day, especially when at this time when there's also rumors of a possible lockdown in terms of what the global trends right now, like Italy, they've already gone through a lockdown and the numbers have ceased grow or are increasing. So while we're looking at that, there's an article there just tying up the issue of COVID-19 has been carried off this morning in the Star. So you might just want to have a look at that.
And on the Standard newspaper, the front page, we have a tragedy of Kenya's empty grain stores. That is highlighted on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Our nation's strategic food stores are empty. A grim reality at a time when pressure is piling up on the government in case of a full coronavirus lockdown to feed the most vulnerable Kenyans, who are 14 million in official statistics. That is according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. 14 million poor. The number of Kenyans who, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data, are food insecure. This means they will be unable to stock up should they be locked down in stepped up of COVID-19 measures. Now, there are statistics that have been given there, and pictured in we have an image of the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya. He has said the government will next month allow the importation of 2 million bags of white maize for human consumption and 2 million bags of yellow maize for animal feed. 14 million poor. The statistics given there on the front page of the Standard, we have residents in different counties, the population, and the number of people who are poor in that specific county or in that area. And nationally, we are 45.37 million people, according to the statistics. But the number of poor people nationally, according to the statistics, are 14.54 million. What does this mean for us as a nation? Tragedy as Kenya's empty grain, or tragedy of Kenya's empty grain stores. Inside the Standard, on this specific story, millions stare at starvation in case of a lockdown. Lack of enough food in reserve could be one of the reasons the state is reluctant to order a full curfew. We have the statistics, you'll be seeing them on your screen there, of food poverty estimates, household by place of residence and county. That story is showing residents in Nairobi County. We are at 11.41 million. That is the number of households. And the number of poor households are 2.72 million. That gives us the image of how bad it is for us as a nation. If we are to go to total lockdown, as some Kenyans say, will we survive? Statistics show at least 14 million Kenyans are food insecure and will be unable to stock up should they be locked in their homes. Get read about this and much more in the Standard newspaper. But it depends on the COVID-19 issue. We also have inside the Standard, hundreds face nightmare over abrupt travel ban. Uhuru stops movement to and out of Nairobi Metropolitan area, Mombasa, Kilifi, and Kwale counties for 21 days. We have pictured in different images of travelers and how bad it is. Some travelers sneaked into Nairobi area through Panya routes to invade police manning roadblocks. Hundreds face nightmare of abrupt travel ban. And still on the Standard, mass testing for medics starts. Counties have confirmed 14 new cases. Mass testing for medics start. Health Ministry says this is part of planned mass testing aimed at combating COVID-19. That is the effect on the of the coronavirus. But remember, yesterday we had the president coming into one of our sister stations here at KBC, Shoro FM, and he was giving his address to the, there was an interview there on Shoro FM. Headline also in the Standard, Uhuru says this: obey all state orders or risk lockdown. Police told to enforce curfew with civility. President says total lockdown is the last option, which will only be considered if the panic gets worse. He gave his comments speaking yesterday during his interview in one of our Kikuyu radio stations, Shoro FM. Get to read about that story inside the Standard newspaper. But remember, on the front page of the Standard, we have why MPs' sittings was stopped. That is on the front page of the Standard. Why MPs' sittings was stopped. This is on the COVID-19 issue. And to get a view of that story, we have members of Parliament who are tested for the COVID-19. Inside the Standard, we have panic as 50 legislators take tests for COVID-19. 14 new cases have been reported. Speakers deny reports special sitting were called off after MP reportedly contracted the disease. Get to read about that and much more in the Standard newspaper on the effects of the coronavirus, including how it's affecting the education ministry. Remember, by the end of the week, schools will have lost 3 weeks under new term. Get to find out more about this in the Standard newspaper.
Keeping up with in the headlines, still focusing on national news, here is the chaos and misery as Kenyans hit hard by the Nairobi order. This is in regards to the lock-in for Nairobi Metropolitan area. And of course, it's a few surrounding environments from Kiambu County, Machakos County and Kajiado County, and chaos is said to have marked the first day of this burning movement between in and or out of Nairobi metropolitan area, and those who were unable to gain access are said to have resorted to circumventing the roadblocks that were put there by the law enforcers, which brought a lot of chaos, and some resorted to using panya routes or trekking just to be able to find ways into the city. And of course, roadblocks have already been put up in some of these areas along the major roads to just curb the movement in and out of the Nairobi metropolitan area. And of course, most of the passengers who were stranded at some of these roadblocks did say that this was a move that was meant to punish us as Kenyans, with one Mr. Michael Mutisia, who is a resident of Joska, saying that, who actually resides at a resident in Joska town in the boundary between Nairobi and Machakos, was saying that this is the government is punishing us because they should have stopped the planes as opposed to stopping us from continuing with our day-to-day activities in and out of the county. And of course, roadblocks have been put up, and this also has affected, those who are using personal means to move about, and they were actually stopped and they had to justify why and give good reasons as to why and where they are going during that time. So all that in regards to the chaos has been highlighted there. And now, as before we get to move to the Star newspaper, just a look at the county news is that going to Kirinyaga County, reprieve for Waiguru as court temporarily halts the Oster plan, and this comes after the High Court judge, that is Weldon Korir, ruled that we are smack in the middle of a pandemic, and the fact that we are in this is going to interfere with the county assembly's mandate and also it interferes with the governor's rights, and it threatens the doctrine of public participation, and therefore they're going to put a halt to the impeachment until further notice or until COVID-19 has been contained. So more of that is on the county news pull-out segment.
Now, still keeping up with the general news, and what has been captured in the dailies this morning is that hospitals have been told to immunize ailing children separately, and this is that there will be decreased demand for vaccination because of physical distancing requirement or community reluctance. The disruption of immunization services is likely to lead to an increased number of susceptible individuals and raise the likelihood of the outbreak of the vaccine-preventable diseases such as measles. That is, healthcare workers or other hospitals just want to immunize children separately during this time. And since we're taking a look at what is happening in terms of innovation, there is a big read this morning and talking about food security. Already there we had a piece that aired on KBC Channel 1, just farmers, a section of farmers from Nakuru calling for an economic stimulus to just support them so that they can continue feeding the nation in the essence. Remember, Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven society. Now a group of students here from Taita Taveta County, and the school is, it's quite difficult to pronounce with my heavy Meru accent, but we shall try. Now, the UD Tech Farm system instantly analyzes the soil moisture, the pH and nutrients levels, and then sends an SMS notification to the farmer in real time. This means is that you get to know the pH. This is Kisagu Girls School students. One is Sophie Mwanjewe, Rosalia Chow, and Happiness Wanjiro, as well as Hanifa Mutua, as they present, there's a photo there, present their innovation during the Diamond Challenge for High School Entrepreneurs in 2020 volume on February 2022. Now, the device is named Ukulima Disruptive Technology, UD Tech System, and it seeks to help farmers in arid and semi-arid, that is ASALs, area plant and harvest more with less water in light of climate change. And they are set to travel to the U.S. to showcase their technology at the University of Delaware. They will face off with other competitors for the global challenge, being the only school representing Kenya. Now, one of the students there goes on to say, Sophie Mwanjewe says, we are targeting to help farmers increase food production in line with the SDG 2, and being among the continents faced with food shortage, Africa needs to embrace this device. It is a game changer. Indeed, go girls, that's the way to go. That need and necessity is a mother of invention. That's what we used to say back in the day. And as we're looking to the counties, let's talk about innovation. There's a 14-year-old boy designs COVID-19 isolation center. A 14-year-old boy, there's a story there, designs a COVID-19 isolation center in Kisumu, in Nyanza County. Rather, that is Migori town yesterday, sorry. And he goes by the name of Joel Noel. And there's a small picture there just trying to show this boy at work, trying to just come up with that isolation center. Is that the youth have taken this appeal and call by the government to be at the forefront in just stemming the spread of COVID-19. Inventions there from a 14-year-old as we focus on stories making headlines from the counties.
On other issues, we have a quiet send-off for Ndingi, who loved God, church, and country. Remember, we had the funeral of the Archbishop Ndingi Mwananzeki, and it is highlighted in the Standard newspaper. Coronavirus scare ruins what would have been a celebration of a life well lived. He did and said what he wanted, sometimes stepping in some pretty big toes in his reign. Quiet send-off for Ndingi, who loved God, church, and country. That is inside the Standard newspaper. Also, we have on national issues in what is affecting the counties in matters to do with politics. MPs want Tuju to keep off Waiguru ouster bid. MPs want Tuju to keep off Waiguru ouster bid. County boss expected to present her defense against MCA's claim of impropriety. Pictured in, we have 5 MPs from Kirinyaga who issued a statement on Monday calling for the county assembly to proceed with its planned motion to impeach Governor Anne Waiguru without interference from Jubilee Party officials. 5 lawmakers accused Jubilee official of trying to arm twist Kirinyaga Assembly into dropping motion planned for today. That is inside the Standard newspaper on huge wage bill alarms ward reps who call for a probe. That is in Embu County. In Nyeri County, also we have traders pave way for railway station. At least 600 traders at the Chaka Open Air Market in Nyeri County have been temporarily relocated. That is in Nyeri County. But still, we also have a pullout, the hustle pullout on starting a business for the entrepreneurs. We have on the front page of this pullout of Hustle, we started our business as a retirement plan. We started a business as a retirement plan. Build a family empire that outlives you. How to win a price war. So to get this story, for all the entrepreneurs there, we have how I did it, advice from someone who found success. We started a business as our retirement plan. This is the story of Dr. Patricia Kingori Mugendi, who decided to start a business out of the need to try out something different with her life. Get to find out more about that inside this pullout. Build a family empire that outlives you. Learning from the people in business. That is in the pullout of the Hustle inside the Standard.
Almost come to a close for the segment in the headlines. Is just to recap what is featured in the counties in the Daily Nation this morning is that a food shortage fears as focus shifts from fighting locusts to coronavirus, and is that residents of Laikipia County are staring at a food crisis after their crops were destroyed by desert locusts and wild animals. Quoted there is a farmer who says we were expecting a bumper harvest this season because we had received favorable rains last year, but we have, however, lost most of our farm produce to desert locusts. That is Rebecca Wambui, a farmer in Shemane, that is in Laikipia County. This comes at a time when the Agriculture Food Authority says that they have warned of a looming shortage after locusts destroyed thousands of acres of crops in more than 20 counties, as the government admitted it was running out of chemicals to control the pests. The insects were spotted in maize and wheat producing areas of Lower Moiben, Sugut, Kampmoi, Chereboa, Sereteo, Brusambwe. Well, there's an excerpt there from the county and what farmers are asking the government to do in light of that current situation. Now on the sports, on the last page of the Star this morning, the back page of the Star, we have some encouraging stories. A story there about Wazito FC. Yes, when other companies have already begun announcing pay cuts, why then Wazito will not feel the corona heat in their pockets. Why? Now, the president, Ricardo Don Bodor, he says that he will not effect pay cuts and he will instead pay salaries in full. He said that he had to be considerate of the employees who have many dependents. My thinking, and I quote, that's he's quoted there, my thinking is that when you have people working for you, you cannot decide not to pay them because there's a virus in the world. It would be very unfair for me to pull such a move. They have families, they need to put food on the table, and as such, I have to consider their welfare too. That is what is stated in the club's website. And on whether this particular move will hurt his business, the Swedish billionaire said he had set aside a kitty to bankroll his entities whenever there is an unfavorable business environment. That is good news for all those who work or are affiliated to Wazito FC there. That brings us up to matters in the headlines as far as I'm concerned. I want to leave you with our able reporter, that is Doreen Arange, on the other side of the studio, to just wrap up before we get to the thick of things and have our conversation this morning with none other than Jain Wambui.
Two French scientists had said that Africa should be a testing ground for this coronavirus disease. However, the World Health Organization now comes to counter that. So Africa not testing ground for virus vaccine. World Health Organization has vowed that Africa will not be used as a testing ground for vaccine against the novel coronavirus. The World Health Organization boss condemned this proposal by the two French scientists that tests needed to be conducted in Africa, and he further accuses the scientists of suffering from a hangover of colonial mentality. Well, the other means that they were saying that Africans' immunity is strong, so that's why they need to test the vaccine here in Africa, but the World Health Organization boss has said that that is wrong and he does not approve of that. To the counties now. what the counties are now doing to stem the spread of this disease. And so Vihiga County sets aside 77 million Kenyan shillings to boost anti-corona war. The Vihiga County government has set aside this money to in its supplementary budget to be used in the fight against coronavirus. So the governor, Wilbur Otichilo, said this yesterday, and he forwarded the supplementary budget to the county assembly for approval. He said the funds will be used to cater for the most vulnerable people in the county and procure protective equipment for health staff and residents. Remember that PPEs still remain an issue amongst health workers in various counties, and so he says that this money will go into that to ensure that health staff and health workers in that specific county, they get the PPEs, as well as the vulnerable individuals in this community can also continue getting their basic needs, which is of course food. Still sticking with counties, Turkana screens 113,652 residents for COVID-19, and a total of these individuals in Turkana County were yesterday screened for this virus. And of course, this were in places of Lodwar, and I mean, actually, by this morning, they're mentioning that they had already screened 113,652 people, with the busiest stations being Lodwar County Referral Hospital and Kainuk Entry Point. So this was said by services. So this is just some of what different counties in the country are trying to do in terms of seeing how best they can contain this disease. And this is in a bid to also help the national government, so that everything just doesn't stick with the national government trying to help, but also this is what the counties are doing. That is the county of Vihiga as well as Turkana. Let's see another county, what they are doing to help contain this disease in terms of ensuring that tests are done, also in terms of helping the vulnerable persons in those specific counties. So this is what Machakos County is doing. Mutua gifts Machakos residents 7-month free water starting May. So the Machakos residents will not pay for water for the next 7 months, following a decision by the county government to waive all consumption bills with effect from May 1st. And this is expected to continue till December of this year, that is December 31st. So this is what Machakos County is doing, waiving water bills. Remember, the president yesterday, on Monday mentioned that actually he thanks the landlords who are trying to do their best to waiver rent. There are those that are waivering electricity bills. So these are just some of the things that are being done by different persons, different counties, to see how best they can contain this disease. So let's move to matters business. Now let me just look at one story in business from this paper. Why Big Four agenda could be the biggest casualty of coronavirus. Manufacturing, one of the key things of the economic blueprint, likely to decline by 70% as county wades through COVID-19. So the president's Big Four economic blueprint faces an uncertain future as the crippling coronavirus pandemic sends the economy into a tailspin. Experts say the virus threatens to disproportionately hit food security, manufacturing, affordable universal healthcare, and affordable housing in the short and medium terms. This is, of course, also, economist David D said that all these investments that were to go to this Big Four agenda now have to be put on hold because they now have to go to containing this disease in terms of ensuring the vulnerable communities, the vulnerable persons in the country can get basic needs. So this is where we bring our In the Headlines segments to a close this morning. Remember, we sampled for you some of the stories that have been making headlines in the Standard, the Daily Nation, the Star, as well as the People's Daily.
Now we continue with our conversations around the coronavirus disease, now known as COVID-19, as was officially shortened to COVID-19, that is the coronavirus disease of 2019, which is said to have started in Wuhan in China late December. After a few days, it was the World Health Organization did declare this disease as a public health emergency of international concern. After a few months down the line, seeing the unprecedented rate at which coronavirus was spreading, the World Health Organization changed the categorization of this disease to a pandemic. Now, with this, word pandemic on social media, mainstream media. So much fear and uncertainty has crippled the population, sending out, people have now been going on frenzies and putting out false and, improper information around COVID-19. And therefore today we are here to help you know what is a myth and what is a fact, what is the truth and what is an untruth about the coronavirus disease of 2019, to better help you know how you can be your first line of defense when it comes to protecting yourself during these uncertain times that we are in the fight against coronavirus. And to help us with this discussion this morning, we have with us Lillian Mutua from the Nairobi County. She is the County Health Promotion Coordinator here in Nairobi County, to help us better understand the myths and the facts around coronavirus. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
We're glad you are with us this morning. Now, ever since this this coronavirus was declared a pandemic on the 11th of March 2020, so much fear has stricken the public. We all have our own definitions of what it could be, what it could not be. And there's so much misinformation going around about coronavirus, just starting with what it is. Now, looking at, the popular social media, some are saying that, the coronavirus is just another common cold, another common flu out there. That is the first misconception that is there about coronavirus. So let's just start there. What is this coronavirus?
Coronavirus is, as you have rightly said, a disease that has come up in 2019, which started in Wuhan, in China.
Yes.
And with the global spread, thus comes with the panic and the anxiety among population. So when you get the coronavirus disease, you will exhibit some signs and symptoms,
yes,
which are the ones that are the cardinal signs we are looking for. You might have elevated fever, very high temperatures of the body. You might also be having a cough. You could also be sneezing and also having difficulty in breathing. Unlike the other diseases that come with the coronavirus, this one affects the respiratory system. And most of the people, there is the panic that people have said that once you get the coronavirus disease, you shall not live, you are going to die. This is one of the misconceptions. Out of the people who get the coronavirus disease, most of them will survive. But if you are not able to access the health facilities in good time, if you are not able to maybe raise for help, then you might continue complicating further.
Okay.
Thus the death occurs.
As a result
in
of
Kenya,
delayed
we have
treatment.
seen that out of the confirmed cases, majority of them are still on treatment. Some have tested negative and discharged, while the others are continuing on treatment.
So when it comes to what coronavirus is, it is not just another common cold or another common flu out there. This is a new virus that has stricken the population.
What people should also know is that we have 17 strains of the coronavirus. But the one of 2019 is the latest.
It's a new one, the novel one.
And we cannot say that it is the common cold.
Yes.
Let us look at what a cold is. A cold is when you have the running nose and maybe a cough and a sneeze there. But other respiratory infections are there, like the bronchitis, the pneumonias, and other upper respiratory and lower respiratory tract infections.
All right. So there you have it. The coronavirus is not just another common cold, yeah? And there are so many other strains of the coronavirus, and this is just the most recently discovered one, the novel virus. Now, another misconception that you've just rightfully mentioned is the fact that, once you have contracted this virus, you're going to die. So many people, and especially our children, are the ones who are getting this information because you ask them, what do you know about coronavirus? And they say, you'll die. This misinformation about coronavirus, and maybe you could just tell us about the recovery cases that have been recorded so far in line with coronavirus and the fact that it's not a death sentence.
What we'd first like to say is that it's because of the conception of what people are seeing on social media. I think when we started seeing like the social media platforms when it started in China, there was a lot of misconceptions because of the viral videos and the images that were going around. And even some of them were flagged to be maybe videos or photos of things that had happened much later.
Yeah.
But now people are taking advantage of
Pegged on this corona
and just
situation.
pegging it on the coronavirus crisis and just sending them left and right.
Yeah.
We also had many texts going around which were of fake news. And even like our country, we've been alerted. Don't just push anything on social media,
especially
to
WhatsApp.
cause alarm.
Yeah.
Yes, especially on the WhatsApp, because it brings in a lot of panic, a lot of anxiety with irrelevant news. And for us, when we look at Kenya, we have many people who have been tested.
Yes.
We have many people who are in quarantine, but we have not even had 10 deaths. So it shows that the case fatality rate, the people who die, are not as many. And we'd also like to thank the Ministry of Health for taking quick action.
So there you have it. Coronavirus number 2 is not a death sentence. If anything, we have more recoveries than fatalities on a global scale when it comes to this pandemic. Now, moving on to another myth that is out there about coronavirus is that exposing yourself to high temperatures. And this is mostly hot baths that is going to help you prevent coronavirus because it cannot live in high temperatures. And you find people are now resorting to extreme hot baths just to try and, protect themselves from contracting coronavirus. Is that safe to start with?
This is one of the myths.
Yes.
And what you should know is that whether you are going to have a very hot shower, there will be steam that is accumulated in that room.
Yes.
Just like when you go for a steam bath. And this helps when you maybe inhale that steam. Then if you had a congestion in your lungs, then you are able to maybe cough and let it out. And even just like the people who get pneumonia,
yes,
or severe chest infection, when we know that their chest is congested, we give them the steam inhalation. So people should not think that this is going to do it. For example, even if you went to a very, maybe to have a hot shower, and you did not use soap, and you had the coronavirus somewhere attached on your skin,
it's still going to live.
It's still going to be there.
All right.
Yes.
So hot baths are good, but they're not a solution.
Exactly. And people are also pegging that if you have the coronavirus in the environment or anywhere on your body, and you are also exposed to high temperatures in the environment, then the virus will die. I just want to alert people, like in Iran and Iraq, they have also reported some cases, and those places are extremely hot.
Yes.
In some parts of Asia, in India, it's also extremely hot, hotter than Kenya, but they've also seen the same cases rise.
All right.
Yes.
So this is not going to be a preventative measure. Yet it might help and block your if you have any issues to do with your bronchus, but it is not a preventative measure when it comes to dealing with coronavirus. The best thing is to go to a medical facility for confirmation. Now, you have just mentioned Iran, and speaking of Iran, there was a case that was reported sometime, I think it was in February, where there were 44 people who actually drank bootleg alcohol in an effort to because they believe that it's going to protect them from contracting coronavirus, and ultimately they died. Bringing it home to Kenya, just the other day, there were a few individuals who actually robbed a lorry thinking it had alcohol, and it had a different chemical, which they ultimately drank and they thought is going to prevent coronavirus. When it comes to this connection between alcohol and coronavirus, is there any truth to it? And this is, by alcohol, we mean bootleg alcohol that people consume.
We have seen that this is derived from when we say that the sanitizers contain 60% to 70% alcohol.
Yeah.
That is not the type of alcohol that people take as a drink.
Yeah.
This is methanol alcohol. That is a chemical substance. So if you think that you're going to take the alcohol and be free of the coronavirus, then we are wrong.
We are very wrong.
We are very wrong.
Taking changa is not going to prevent anything.
And if you can also take a lot of alcohol and you become hypoglycemic, your sugars go down, then you die.
then you die. A death that could have been avoided if you just followed what the directives from the Ministry of Health are. So there is no truth when it comes to alcohol and coronavirus, and especially the alcohol that is contained in some of these chemicals that are used to sanitize the outer parts of the body.
Exactly. And just like we had seen some pictures going viral on WhatsApp.
Yes.
That if you don't have a sanitizer, instead of washing your hands, you can wash your hands with alcohol. The alcohol content in beer and spirits might not be as high as the one in the sanitizer.
So it might not be as helpful.
You are not doing any good to yourself.
You're not doing any good to yourself. All right. Now, another myth that is circulating out there comes to humans. You know, we all know that it started in China, and it did affect the western side of the divide more than before it got to the African side of the divide. And so as a result, people started saying that, you know, this coronavirus, you know, if you are dark-skinned, you're immune to it. You know, you're not going to get it until the cases started spilling in. But still people are saying if you are dark-skinned or if you're African, you are protected from coronavirus. Tell us a bit about that.
We have seen the numbers of cases rising in Africa. We've even seen the numbers of the blacks even in other countries where people are affected. The only thing that we should know is that the coronavirus does not look at the social class, the financial levels of a person, whether it's a continent or anything. You will still get. So let us be very careful when we are giving some of this information. Just to be careful and understand what the ministry tells you is from a scientific point of view, and even researches that are going on since the coronavirus was discovered. So let us be very careful of what information we are giving to each other. If we have seen that in Kenya we are having cases, in the East African countries, we have a number of cases, and the cases are on the rise. Then this means that even the black person is not any peculiar.
So people should stop being careless about, you know, this myth, especially when it comes to color, because it has sort of propagated some sense of carelessness among the population. People are just continuing with business as usual. As long as you think you're dark-skinned, you're protected. There's some sense of carelessness that has come with this myth among the population.
Exactly, and even like the other day we were down in the community, and the youths were telling us that the people who will be affected are the very young children and the elderly, because their immune system is wanting, and being youth, then they think that they are going to overcome. Let us just be careful and take all the precaution measures, because once we've even seen from our data, we've had youth who have been affected. The youngest has been the 4-year-old, and the eldest has been the 71. We've had people who are 20, people who are 30, mid-30s, early 30s getting infected. These are all youth. So let us not take chances thinking that we'll be doing good.
All right. Now, let's move on to another misconception that, you know, I came across on social media. And this is sort of more of a human tendency, because when you tend to have, you know, common colds at home, we resort to self-medicating. Most of us don't go to hospitals. And now people are resorting to antibiotics as a preventative measure to help protect themselves from contracting coronavirus. First of all, the difference between bacterial infections and viral infections, and given that coronavirus is a viral infection, tell us a bit about that.
Well, even for the common colds, and that is why when you have a common cold, you'll be requested to maybe have some good sleep, not to have a lot of activity. If possible, stay indoors or stay in bed. Take a lot of fluids and keep warm. It's because once you're attacked by a virus, there's no virus that has a cure. And if there's any virus that could be having a cure, we've done so much research on the HIV world, and we have not yet gotten any cure. Even for the simple common cold, it is the other complications that might rise that are given preference for you to be given any medication. And this also brings a complication, especially among our populations. If you go to a hospital and you're told this is a common cold, maybe you're told just take plenty of water. If you are maybe complaining about some body ache or some headache, you're given some few painkillers, and you're told just go home, have a rest, take plenty of fluids, and take a lot of vitamins, maybe the fruits and the vegetables. People feel offended and they go over the counters to buy antibiotics.
Yes.
A virus cannot be cured by taking antibiotics. Maybe only if you are having a cold and you start having a sore throat, or we listen to your chest and get maybe you've developed a pneumonia, then you can be given an antibiotic. For the coronavirus, we know that even people have been reading on social media where we are being told this drug has worked in this country, this was tried and it worked. And you find people are just walking to the chemists and buying these drugs and stocking them in their houses. Neither do they even want to inquire when is the expiry date, so that maybe when the shelf life is over, they can throw them. They are not looking at that. Some people are already even dosing themselves with antibiotics. It is good for them to note that with time, they might be getting some resistance from these drugs. And maybe a drug that would have helped you out if you have another condition in the future, it might not work out for you.
Because your body is so used to it.
Yes, so this is not time for just taking any other medication. And let us be careful. If you've taken a lot of antibiotics, a lot of medicine, then when you test positive and you start having the complications, which medications will we start you on?
And your body has already built up resistance.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of some of these over-the-counter drugs, you know, there's this whole facade that is revolving around this chloroquine, malaria drug. And, you know, we did hear the minister, the DG from the ministry did say that, you know, it is one of the drugs that is being used to treat the symptoms that our patients are presenting, you know, with coronavirus. But you find people are also self-medicating with chloroquine. What are the consequences of this?
Chloroquine is not a new drug in this country. And let us reflect. We are a country that has incidences of malaria, especially in the coast, in the western and in the Nyanza region, the Rift Valley, places like Baringo, where once in a while we have high numbers of malaria, even causing deaths. And we have known that in the past, we used to use chloroquine, both tablet and injection. And we formed some resistance because anybody could just think the signs and symptoms are having, that is malaria. Instead of going to the hospital to get a lab test, they went over the counter and we misused the drug. So let us also be careful that we are still repeating the same pattern. It could have the drug that is being used could be having a base of the chloroquine, but might not be the very chloroquine that you're taking.
Specifically.
And if we've already had resistance cases of chloroquine drug in our country, then let us just totally stop abusing that drug.
Let us stop self-medicating at home.
Exactly.
If you present any symptoms that you think could be pointing towards coronavirus, the best option is to go to a medical facility.
Exactly.
For confirmation.
And giving yourself the chloroquine if you think you are exhibiting the symptoms is not going to help. We have said that this is a respiratory tract infection. It needs to be looked at as that. So the chloroquine will not come in for the respiratory complications.
All right. Now, speaking of home remedies, there's also these other myths that are circulating about traditional home concoctions that we tend to use when we are having colds or flus. We always resort to these concoctions that we make at home, mixed of garlic with ginger and lemon, boil it. You have a very nice concoction. But now people are resorting to eating raw garlic, saying that, you know, this ni defense tosha. This is going to help me not contract coronavirus. Your thoughts on that?
I think we have a lot of nutrition factors embedded in different foods that once in a while when you take, they trigger boosting the immune system. But they are not curative measures. We also have others like the lemon, the orange, the ginger and such, and the garlics and honey, which we know that all of them have some nutritional component, especially the micronutrients, the vitamins. So once you take that, you might be boosting your vitamin content. You could also be triggering the immune system to respond, but it is not a cure. Some of them, like the honey, the ginger, hot water, if you take and you had something up on your throat, it soothes, but it does not treat.
So some of these home remedies, yes, they have microbial properties that are good for your immune system, but they are not a sense of defense when it comes to the coronavirus.
Exactly.
So don't just take that and say, since I took this concoction this morning, I will not put on a mask, I will not sanitize my hands because my immunity is top-notch. No. You're going to dig yourself in a hole that you will not be able to get yourself out of. Now, there's also this other misconception about children and the fact that, you had touched on it a bit, but people are also saying, that children are immune to this disease. We haven't had so many cases about children, but of course, in the recent past, there have been cases of children contracting this virus and even a fatality, but still people are saying, children they're immune to this thing, so let them play. I mean, they're at home, let them go out and play, mingle, interact with each other without any protective measures put in place. Tell us a bit about this. How is this a problem?
This is a misconception, and we have said that the coronavirus can attack anybody, regardless of age, regardless of sex, regardless of race. And let us keep our children safe. Like we have said, that is why the children, if the children were immune, we would not even have closed the schools. We would have let them be. But because we know that there is a post-risk, that is why even they were told to stay home, so that they can be kept indoors, not outdoors. Let us look at the activities that children will go about. You find that children, when playing, can touch any surface. They will touch each other. They'll not keep the social distance. And if one of them is infected, then the rest will get the infection.
And take it back home.
And take it back home, and then also infect the other members in the house. So let's be very careful. Children are not exempted from this. Let us keep them safe. Let us teach them all the interventions. And the beautiful thing is, today, if you walk into a household, when you're coming home, maybe from work or you had gone out, it is your children who remind you to wash your hands. Once they are given information, it's very dear to them and they follow. So it is maybe we who are letting the children down.
So we need to be careful with when it comes to protecting them, especially because they might not be as empowered or as knowledgeable about coronavirus. So don't let your children just keep playing as if things are normal out there. Keep them in the house. Find ways to keep them occupied as opposed to just saying, let them go play. They are immune to this. No, they are not. And that is why schools were the first institutions that were closed when it came to this dealing with coronavirus. Now, another misconception that revolves around coronavirus is how it is transmitted. And some are saying that, as long as I have a face mask and gloves, I'm well protected because they think that coronavirus is airborne.
People should distinguish between the two. Coronavirus is a droplet infection. It is not airborne. It needs a medium. It needs a medium. But the molecules of this virus are heavy. So if I'm infected or someone is infected with the coronavirus, then as we talk, like the way we are talking now, if either of us was infected, as we talk, there are some small particles of the droplets that are coming from our mouth. When we sneeze the same, when we cough the same, when we are laughing the same, they will look for a surface to go and attach on. So it could be my clothes, it could be the book that I'm holding, it could be my phone, whatever surface, it could be the furniture. So from there, if you are not going to maintain your hand hygiene and you come to a surface that has the virus and pick it up, and maybe in a while, you'll be touching on your mouth or your lips, maybe poking your nose or rubbing your eye. That thin mucosa, the lining, that is the very good place for it to enter. So it will not go through your very hard skin. It will not go through your hair, but the mucosa, the very light lining of your body. So when this happens, it is not airborne. If coronavirus was airborne, most of us would not be negative. We'd all be infected by now, because whatever is airborne circulates with the air. And just a good example is that when a car emits some fume as it passes near you, that fume is going to mix with the air that is around, and you will feel, first you'll feel the smell, then the irritation. Why? Because it is in the air and you have inhaled.
And it enters your body system so easily.
So if that was the same case with the coronavirus, then so many people would have been infected by now. So let us look at our hand hygiene. Let us look at our coughing and sneezing etiquette. Let us also, like now we know that we are having the community circulation. And when you look at people, maybe when they are going around their businesses, we are not also maintaining our social distance as B. So this is another also measure just to top up on the social distance. So if I was affected, I will put on a mask so that if I'm talking, I'm not emitting the same into the environment and the people who are near me, so that they do not also get it.
All right. What about those people who are still, yes, they're putting on gloves, they're putting on masks, but you find they keep repeating the masks without cleaning them if they can't be washed, and they each still wearing the same gloves that they have worn the entire day. After an entire day of working, or, you've been working since morning, you just go sit somewhere and you start eating with the same gloves that you have been wearing and using to touch all these other surfaces.
Number one, we have different types of gloves.
Yeah.
Not gloves, masks.
Masks.
There are those which are disposable. And we are having the ones that we have been encouraged. If you don't have the disposable masks or the required surgical masks,
by the reusable
or the
ones.
Yes, any of the recommended, then you can make artificial masks to protect you and to protect others. There's even a way to put them on. Before you put on your clean mask, you're supposed to either wash your hands or sanitize and then put on the mask.
And the face as well? Before you get to put on this mask,
No,
do you
just
need to clean your face?
You don't need to clean your face. You only need, because you are protecting yourself from maybe emitting the virus, or also if any of the environment that is near you, maybe a person is near you and talking, and this virus comes, it should not land near your nose or your mouth.
All right.
And when you're doing that, you first, like I said, sanitize or wash your hands, and you touch the edges where either you have the loop or the loops.
Yeah.
And
go over your ear.
Go over your ear.
Yeah.
If it is the one of tying, you tie a bit higher on your head, and the mask should be covering your nose and should be covering below your knee, your chin. We have seen people who put on the mask, and when they want to talk, they are bringing them down.
Beating the purpose.
And you find that someone is telling you, I cannot breathe.
Yeah.
So I need to put it out at a certain time and return it. As you do that, in case the outer side was contaminated with the virus, when you're pushing it up, what are you doing? Bringing it near the environment where the infection occurs.
So we need to stop this habit of tucking it under our chin right here. And then after you're done, you just pull it back up.
It is very bad.
Very
and
dangerous.
Also, the outer side, you should not touch it. And that is why we are saying, even when removing, sanitize your hands, touch the loops and remove. And if it is a washable mask, hang it somewhere so that after you've done what you wanted to do, you can remove it. If you need it to keep it before you wash it, kindly put the outside to be tuck it in, and let the inside part be outside until the time you're going to wash it.
All right.
If it is the disposable one, still do the same. Tuck it in, take the straps and tie it, and dispose it carefully.
And as
because you've seen some people just dropping them anywhere.
Yeah.
This also becomes a very good environment for spreading the infection.
All right.
Yes.
And how long does this virus, how long can it survive outside the human host? Because they use the human body as a host. How long can it survive on surfaces?
Research is still being done, and still coming up with new findings. We've seen that they have said on certain fabrics, it can last to 2 to 4 hours. On your hands, because of the, if you are practicing the hand washing, then as you put the soap or the sanitizer, it is also destroyed. On wooden surfaces, it could stay to up to 6 hours.
6 hours.
And longer on metallic surfaces.
Right.
So it depends if it is a cloth, the fabric type, and also what has gone there. If it was too much of maybe the droplet, which was heavy, maybe having some saliva, it will last longer as it dries. And the research is still ongoing. As we have said, this is a new virus, still undergoing research. And as situations unfold, in different places, then research is still being done.
All right.
So we are yet to be informed in most of these aspects.
All right. Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, there's also been this misunderstanding about how it also is still falling under the tab of how it is transmitted. There's also so much untruth and misinformation about how it's transmitted, and this is now when it comes to pets and other animals. Some are saying that mosquito bites can transmit this virus, and others are saying other household pets, cats and dogs, can also transmit this virus, the human-animal interaction. And especially after we heard of this tiger in New York, which is said to have tested positive for coronavirus. What is the relationship between this human-animal transmission of coronavirus?
These are called the zoonotic diseases.
Yeah.
For coronavirus, this has not been established yet. As we have said, it is droplets. And there is no confirmed research saying that our pets will harbor the same.
Okay.
I know in other instances, this can be confirmed, but the research that is currently ongoing, this has not been established. What we know is that all our environments, including our furniture, our houses and everywhere, because we know that is where the droplets will embed.
Yeah.
Let us just keep them safe. I do not expect that you will stay for long without even washing your pet.
Yeah.
This should also be done. Let us keep our environment safe. Let us keep everything that is around us just safe.
So the human-animal interaction bit is yet to have conclusive results.
Exactly.
As is, we need to stop speculating and stop distancing ourselves from our pets. Let's keep them clean, because at the end of the day, cleanliness is going to be our first line of defense. Now, speaking of lines of defense, what are some of those prevention mechanisms that we need to adopt? We have been hearing them from the Ministry of Health, World Health Organization, and all other medical entities emphasizing on some of these, preventative measures that we need to adopt to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Briefly, as we close the conversation.
Let us continue to wash our hands. Number one, hand washing.
Yeah.
Let us wash our hands. A sanitizer becomes a second priority
defense, yeah.
if you are not able to have the soap and running water. At that point, let us also desist putting on gloves, because as we put on the gloves for the long hours, touching each and every other surface, if we had the virus on those gloves, then it means everywhere that we are touching, including our own items like the laptops, the phones, our handbags, we are leaving the virus there. So it the glove becomes a very good environment. I think even when I'm walking in the streets, I've requested a lot of people to remove
them.
I think once someone sees someone doing something, they also do the same. Then let us also have the cough etiquette, the sneezing etiquette. Let us also remember that if we have any of the signs, like the rising body temperatures, very high fevers, which is not going off, we are having a cough that is not ending, we start sneezing, very irritative sneeze, and which is continuous. And if we even have, at times we will not even have those three, you could just suddenly start having difficulty in breathing. Kindly don't sit down and say, let me observe. Kindly call 719. A response team will be sent to you wherever you are. We'll be able to collect the samples, and we'll also look at if you meet the case definition, and we'll be able to take you to a health facility. The other thing is that if you think you have those signs, even if you're in a household or in a workplace or where some other people are, you are not alone, kindly start isolating yourself so that you don't continue. Maybe if you're coughing, you are still coughing and emitting the same way the other people are. It breaks the transmission. Let us also observe the curfew hours. Why we are doing this, it's also part of the social distancing, because we found out prior to this, people were not going to work because they had been told to go home, and those who are at work were coming back home, and people were converging in different sites, just maybe to talk. People in the evening are going to visit other places, maybe their neighbors, their friends, because maybe they have taken a whole day at home. And this is also being put so that we can flatten this curve so that the cases can also go down. For the places that are having, and let me also correct, there is no county or place in Kenya where we have put a lockdown. What we are having is restricted movement. I've even had some media houses across saying that the other counties, that is Mombasa, Kilifi, and Kwale, they are going for a lockdown. This is not a lockdown. We're only restricting movement. And for those who are maybe restricted to come into these counties, we saw yesterday on media some people are even trying to use the Panya route.
Yeah.
You could have been safe wherever you are. And now by doing what you are doing, coming back to counties where we are reporting high cases, then you're exposing yourself.
Okay.
And even I was looking at the people who are, like the clips we were seeing of people coming back to Nairobi. They don't have masks. They are not observing social distance. Then, leave alone the ones in Nairobi, that group that was being showed in footage, in case one of them had the infection, what could be going around?
All right.
So let us just be cautious. Kenyans should stop being assumptuous and let us listen to the right information being given through by the Ministry of Health, and let us not push a lot of media, social media, that brings a lot of anxiety all over.
Let's follow the information that we are being given by the mainstream media coming from the Ministry of Health. And one more thing, is the cough that related to coronavirus productive or dry? Or it could be either?
It could be either,
okay,
depending on maybe someone has other infections.
All right.
So long as you've had a cough that you cannot resist.
That is persistent?
That is persistent.
Okay.
Kindly just go for attention.
All right.
And going for attention, we're also requesting people, don't leave your house going to the hospital. Because if you are positive and you have not been tested, as you mingle with the other persons, you are also spreading the virus. So just stay contained. Call 719. We'll give you the attention that you need.
All right, so there you have it. We hope after this discussion you are better positioned to know what is a truth about coronavirus and what is a misconception about coronavirus. Remember, you are your first line of defense, and you need to just follow these basic rules and that are being put, these basic measures, not rules, measures that are being put in place to help curb and flatten this curve of infection when it comes to coronavirus. Follow the directives that are being given by the Ministry of Health, which are of course in line with the World Health Organization. And at the end of the day, we are going to bring this menace, this pandemic to a close. Remember, the virus does not move. You are the one who move it. You and I are the ones who are capable of moving this virus. So let's minimize our movement. Do not leave the house if you do not need to, and protect yourself. Be your first line of defense. We have been speaking with Lillian Mutua, who is the County Health Promotion Coordinator here in Nairobi County, helping set the record straight when it comes to myths and misconceptions and also the truths about coronavirus. We want to take a quick break, but remember, keep talking to us using the hashtag #GoodMorningKenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. My handle is the Jain Wambui, and for those who are not able to, access a TV or a TV for that matter, you can always catch us live on Facebook and on YouTube. Follow the conversations, share with us your thoughts and comments in regards to these discussions that we are bringing to you on during this live broadcast. So do stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Baba amekuwa mgonjwa, amekonda, hata ana nguvu.
Nakata kwenda hospitali kwa nini? Si nilikwambia tuwezi jua kwa hakika kama ni TB. Mpaka uende hospitali upimwe. Na kama ni TB, unatibiwa kwa hospitali yote bila malipo. Tests unafanywa bila malipo. Madawa unapewa bila malipo. Utaambukiza kila mtu kwa hii nyumba.
Usingoje hadi dakika ya mwisho. Pimwa kwenye hospitali ya serikali. Matibabu inapatikana bila malipo. TB inakinga na tiba.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
You have something with that woman. What's going on is that every time I turn around, I find that you're with her. You look for any excuse to go to that house, to talk to her, to be close to that woman. You want to get his revenge.
Well, you can call it whatever you want.
But I'm warning you about one thing, Dulce. Don't you get in my way.
Next on.
Basi Msengala ngapika ngakalimbishwa na njiki moja. Njiki tukachapa. Basi njiki ingine ikaja tukaondoa. Kikuja kunjua tulichapa njiki ngapi?
3. Ndio maana ukashindwa kuna nyumbani sasa.
Na hizo ni zile najua. Ngoja ngufundishe. Basi kitu ya kwanza unalengea. Unajilengeza. Ukilengea basi unalengeza macho.
Wewe Nzomo.
Tabia gani hiyo? Macho kama mbali. Nawaka ikisima, inawaka ikisima.
Alishikwa, anahitajika 3,000 ndio atolewe.
Amefanya nini?
Alishikwa katika msako.
Msako gani? Sema ukweli wewe. Anashikwa akinywa pombe haramu.
Ala?
Top on Channel 1.
Keep your heart clean so your days can be better. But we get so amused every time. Now I'm not trying to preach to you. You never put up a fight, no.
Stand with me this time. Stand with me this time. Promise. Now.
It's Wednesday on KBC Channel 1.
Dad sent me a list of names, some numbers that make no sense to me, and pictures of truck accidents.
Sometimes desperation can make us do things that we wouldn't otherwise do.
No, you're the one who's acting confused. Although you deny it, you love me. It's just that you've been hurt and you feel jealous. That's why you're trying to destroy me. You know it.
Eduardo simply can't keep his distance from that woman. But she's the one who won't leave him alone. She's the one that thinks up any kind of excuse to be with him and to come between us. I'm not going to allow her to separate me from Eduardo. She won't be able to do it.
Next on.
Hata nikapata mawazo ya kijinga kwake, ningeolewa na yeye. Angenioa mimi.
Umefanikiwa?
Mapambo ya vyuma vya mazingira rafiki yaliyotengenezwa kwa aloi ya plastiki na zinki.
Sisi watu wa Yuju tulikuwa tunajitahidi tukivuka shida nyingi. Hatimaye tumeweza kuvishinda vikwazo kabisa na kupata matunda. Hii inaweza ikaitwa ni baada ya dhiki ni faraja.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
I never joke around with serious agendas. Beautiful.
Atito, you mean even today is beautiful today?
What fool story? Do you think you will get away with this? Do you know me?
What is wrong with you guys? Hey, you want Museme? Why can't you just mind your own businesses? And of course, this woman is Araya.
Maalimu Balis, we just did our job.
Your job is also to use your medulla oblongata.
Can't you people stay without drama for 1 month? Just 1 month, eh? Must I keep up cleaning up your messes?
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
right, many thanks for staying with us. Good morning, Kenya continues, and of course, I want to look at some of your feedback. This is in line with the discussion that Jain was having earlier on in regards to the myths and misconception. Remember that our social media platforms are still open at KBC Channel 1 TV, at Jain Wambui, at Aguko, at Manyara, and at Doreen Arange. That is how you can reach us on our various social media platforms. But just before I get to look at Facebook, there was also something that was going on. Again, this is in line with the discussion that was happening earlier on. This is in line with the myths and misconception. Remember that there were two French scientists who had wanted Africa to be a lab test for the vaccine of this disease, but the World Health Organization, through its boss, said that this is not going to happen. And this was also one of the stories that was there in the dailies, where he mentioned that Africa not testing ground for virus vaccine. So he continued to say, actually he condemned the proposal of these two French scientists that had proposed that Africa to be a testing ground for this vaccine. So for those that might think that, for those that might continue to think that probably Africa is going to be a testing ground for this disease, well, the World Health Organization boss has just said that that is not going to happen, and he condemned the proposal of those two French scientists. Now, coming to your feedback, this is on Facebook. Most of you are just saying that they are watching the show, they love the show. There's Musanyi Kipsis who's saying that he is watching from Kilgoris town. Elaine Kamui saying that she is saying that she is requesting for a total lockdown for us. Please, I'm requesting for a total lockdown. We save our life. There's also another one who was requesting for a total lockdown for our lives to be saved, especially for us who are living in Nairobi County. This is Enoch Perry. Enoch Perry says, Niko locked, Nikiwa Embakasi. So most of you are just loving the show, watching the show from various places. There was also a number of you that were saying that they're requesting for a total lockdown for us to be saved as a country, or be saved from the spread of this disease. All right, let's move to other matters now, and this is again in regards to the discussion that is going to be happening just a couple of minutes from now with my colleague Graham Aguko. This is in line with the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Remember, this is a new position that was created by His Excellency. But let's begin from where all this matter started. This was after the Nairobi County Governor, Mike Sonko, had been facing a number of charges, among them corruption issues. This was about 2 months ago, whereby now His Excellency decided that, not actually decided, but His Excellency now transferred some of the functions from the county government to the national government. And the signing of this agreement was witnessed by Speaker of Senate, that is Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, as well as the Attorney General Paul Kihara. So some of these functions that were now transferred from the county government to the national government as at that time included county health services, county transport services, county public works, utilities and ancillary services, county government planning. This is the county government planning and development. These were the four key functions that had been moved from the county government to the national government as at that time. However, a couple of weeks later, the president created a new position. This is the position of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and he mentioned that this position was going to be headed by the Major General Mohammed Badi of the Kenya Air Force. That was then, and then the position was to be deputized by Enosh Mumanyi. So this, both their terms began on March 18. So counting the number of weeks, I can say that since that time, at least it's been 3 weeks since then. And what the president had said at that time is that he asked the general to end the rampant corruption in the country and cartels who ran important functions which had rendered slow growth in the country. Remember, that time when the county governor was facing some of these charges, most of the functions in the county were at hold, some were running very slowly, and so the president had asked the general to end the rampant corruption in the county. And of course, we saw the Major General just beginning to perform his task. And like I was mentioning to you yesterday, among them was also the cleanup of the city. We saw estates like Shauri Moyo and Majengo and in Kamkunji area, at least experiencing this cleanup city. And like the way I was mentioning also to you is that most of our roads in the city center are not well designated. So if we have garbage, it becomes difficult. The roads become impassable. But where exactly was the confusion? Remember when the president was now transferring this function, he had well set out clearly which functions were to be handled by who. And so just to reiterate on this function, at that time now, because the functions were now moved again now to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, so the 4 delegated functions that now were to be handled by the NMS were again health, transport, planning and development, and public works, which together have a budget of 20 billion. In effect, the county government, this is Governor Mike Sonko, was also left with some functions. However, there were less influential responsibilities, and this included licensing of dogs, controlling pornography, and other non-essential services, which sort of rendered him and ceremonial governor. But at least the functions were well spelled out, at least the functions were well divided. So that meant that there were functions that were to be handled by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and there were functions that were to be handled by the county government. But where does all this problem begin, to a point where the governor, Mike Sonko, said that the NMS was overstepping?
And that is what brings us to this morning conversation on The Viewpoint. I'm joined by Alex Manyasi, who is a policy analyst, and I'm also joined by Advice Mundalo, who is a political and communications expert. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for finding time to join me this morning. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
The Viewpoint starts now. Give us your tweets on Twitter handle. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Aguko, at Jain, Wambui, and at Doreen, Arange. Now, concerning the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, I would like to start off with the working environment first of all. Now that we have changes, Mr. Manyasi and Mundalo, we have changes in Nairobi. So far, with the latest events, on Monday we had a convergence, people meeting up at Uhuru Park for the issuance of letters of redeployment to all county workers who will be transferred to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. This function, which was called off by Governor Sonko. And I would like to quote what he said, and then maybe you can give us your take on this. And I quote, this is what the governor said, addressing the meeting. The public gathering called by the NMS through the PSC scheduled for Monday, April 6th, and Tuesday, April 7th, which was yesterday and the day before, is hereby cancelled until further notice. This is in line with the presidential directives issued to combat the spread of the coronavirus. But people went. What interpretation do you get from this, Alex?
One straight thing I can say is that the governor of Nairobi had no mandate over, in terms of cancelling a meeting that, number one, was not called by him. Secondly, it was about staff whom he had transferred, and therefore he had no ability to dictate to those members of staff, and obviously that's part of the reason why they still went ahead to go to the meeting anyway.
You say his authority is not in line in that sector?
He transferred those services, and he signed on the transfer itself, and therefore he lost his mandate over the staff for the transferred functions. And remember, part of the reason why this needed to happen was because any employee would play allegiance to the employer. And therefore, as long as they were still having contracts reading the county, the county of Nairobi, then by extension that will have meant that they report to Governor Sonko. So that needed to change, and therefore I'm sure that's why they were being given new contracts, because the functions had been transferred to the national government, and the employer of the national government is Public Service Commission. And so that needed to happen for purposes of starting afresh.
And to your advice, when you look at this, does it mean that there is a reduction in the powers of Governor Sonko? What do you think about this? Transferring powers from the county to the national government. Now we have the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Is this a sign that the governor is less powerful or less authoritative?
Thank you very much, Ram. And I think it's very obvious that, of course, the governor here wields less power than he did before, because in the first place, he questioned his legitimacy by himself by, first of all, transferring the powers to the national government. So it is very obvious that then the staff of the county government would pay allegiance to the person appointed by the president, because they saw their boss hand over his own mandate to the national government. Therefore, it is not very likely that staff would listen to him a lot now, because they have already seen what has happened before. They have seen that he handed them over, and they have seen that he was even facing impeachment. And actually, staff are finding it actually unpalatable to then associate with Governor Mike Sonko. So as it stands now, as my colleague puts it, actually, Mike Sonko could not be able to cancel a meeting that he did not call. And so in my view, and also looking at the basis on which he was canceling the meeting, it indicates that he's aware that he was doing an illegality. That's why he was citing something to do with coronavirus, and not necessarily the legitimacy of the meeting itself. So in my view, Sonko is playing what he knows best, which is politics.
But if you see politics in all of this, if you look at what has happened with regards to what the governor signed, and we will be looking into that agreement in a bit, it doesn't mean that he lost his powers as a governor. He just transferred some 4 functions. Alex.
You know, when you talk about power and functions, it's one and the same thing. So people elect you to offer services to them. By extension, what that means is that if those functions are being spearheaded by the staff that you have hired, then the function by extent, when transferred, it means that's exactly what you have done. You have transferred part of your legitimacy to the other party.
So
and
if he can cancel a meeting,
no,
people should not listen to his call to cancel any meeting at all?
No, he couldn't have cancelled the meeting because, number one, he didn't call it. Number two, he didn't have the power to cancel it. Number three, the meeting was called with regards to the functions that he had transferred. And therefore, by extension, the cancellation of the meeting will not have happened because the people that were going to that meeting had been transferred essentially to someone else. And so if I was the one that the functions had been transferred to, for instance, if you didn't show up, then I had the legitimacy to fire you. So it was just as simple as that. So the people that the meeting that the governor was purporting to want to cancel were not they were not reporting to him effective from the date when he signed the transfer of functions.
But these are county workers.
The county workers.
You would say county workers do not report to the governor of the county.
True, but you see, it's and that's why when there are problems in Nairobi, when the governor was a full governor, people did not ask the director of planning. People did not ask the director or the chief officer in charge of environment. People asked what Sonko was doing. What that means is that constitutionally, people elect a governor to offer services to them. And those services are offered by the people that he has employed and the people that work under those people. And therefore, once you transfer those functions, it means that you cannot, for example, say that you transfer functions and still have the governor have his full powers, because you will have created two centers of power, which is not possible for functioning of any institution.
Advice, who should people listen to? Who should people report to? The general or the governor?
That is quite a tricky question, Ram. But then, in as far as the functions that were transferred is concerned, then the staff of those that work under those functions, obviously, are supposed to report to the DG to the Nairobi Metropolitan, because that is what then it is today. And in reality, when you sink down in reality, in theory, we would be right to say we have Nairobi Metropolitan and then we have Nairobi County. And therefore, these would be taken as two different entities. But when you come to the reality of governance, when you come down to the reality of governance, then you will slowly come to then accept the reality that Nairobi County is more or less moribund for now. And therefore, Mike Sonko for now is just, is more or less ceremonial. He just survived to do, he survived an impeachment. And therefore right now, Mike Sonko is just more or less a political leader. You know, like what we usually have in the, in Britain and the UK, where we have the Queen, who is just a political figurehead. I think Mike Sonko today is that kind of person. He's just a figurehead, but he doesn't have the functions. He doesn't have the functions that he's running as such. And I think when he was doing the transfer, this did not sink down in him. I think at that time he was jittery. He was just coming out of prison, and there was also an impeachment ploy against him. The courts were running after him, and therefore I think he made decisions under that tension. And it is now sinking deeper into reality now that what he did might not have been in the best interest of both himself and even his administration. But that it's done now, he cannot change it. And therefore, he just has to accept the reality that now Nairobi County workers will now be Nairobi Metropolitan workers. And all he has to do is play safe and do the politics, which I think he's good at, and he will survive that.
Yeah. So it means you agree with what Alex Manyasi is saying, that he's now a governor with half functions, meaning he is ceremonial. Half a governor.
Half is too high, because when we talk about transport, we talk about health, and we talk about planning. I think that is basically county government and what you're actually supposed to be doing as a governor. Because as before the show started, and we were doing the reading of the functions, when you are now brought down to issues of licensing of dogs and some of those kind of things, I think those are very small functions per se, but again, you don't wish away a politician, however how small the function can be. He can be able to make big anything out of even a very small thing. So but as it stands, actually, the reality on the ground is that the DG is in charge of Nairobi County, and Sonko will even see it soon. I think soon, even after the coronavirus, this thing will even get it will get murkier, because even memos from the national government, I doubt whether they will be addressed to the Nairobi governor. They will actually be addressed to the Nairobi Metropolitan Director General.
I'm looking at what you're saying, and is there any sign of overstepping? Because I'm seeing a case where you're saying that we have the Major General Badi and we have Governor Sonko, who are both in charge of, I can say, Nairobi, not specific to Nairobi County or Metropolitan, but Nairobi as a whole. The governor is accusing the general of overstepping in his mandate. Is that true?
When I started RAM, I told you that, remember, Governor Mike Sonko is a politician first, before he even becomes a governor. And therefore, in everything that he does, we must be able to know that there must be a political motive into it. And therefore, I don't see any case of overstepping from the DG, because the DG is basically running the functions that he was given. And when you are given functions, that means you are given both the staff, the assets, and every resource that comes with it. So there is nothing like overstepping. And Nairobi County and Nairobi Metropolitan, in fact, are not even the same when you even judge from the presidential speech when he was giving the cessation order, what has been debated to be whether it's a lockdown. When he was giving that order to Nairobi, he said he's locking down Nairobi Metropolitan, which includes Nairobi County, which means Nairobi County is actually not Nairobi Metropolitan. So there is no overstepping of anything.
So you're saying the governor falls under the general?
It is not legitimately so, but realistically so.
All right. Alex, what do you think about this? The governor saying or claiming that the Major General is overstepping in his mandate, but the Major General is saying no, he is not. He's actually going well in line with what they had agreed upon on the signed deed of transfer.
Ram, let me tell you one thing. Governor Sonko was going the Waititu way. That's for sure.
He was going to be impeached?
He was going home. And so at that point in time, if you asked me, at that point in time,
yes.
He was actually too clever for most of us to even have imagined that he can transfer those functions because of two reasons. One, he will have faced an impeachment, meaning he will have gone home. But on the other hand, he wasn't sure that if he went home at that time, that he was assured of being cleared to run for election. Remember, Nairobi had no deputy governor, meaning that impeachment, unlike Kiambu, where there was a deputy who took over, Nairobi would have been an automatic election. So that was a headache that the governor had. Then secondly, remember the national government had the same headache, where you are sending a governor home and you're facing an election, and you don't have the money to do the election, a by-election, and at the same time you're not even sure that that by-election will give you the product that you want. So the best thing is to do a compromise where you, and you remember, the MCAs were even summoned to State House, and they were told to drop those ambitions, I want to call them ambitions, to kick the governor out of office. And so by looking at that, the governor has emerged as, if you asked me, as actually the winner in this arrangement, in the sense that he still can call himself a governor, even though the functions that he's running do not warrant him. In fact, the questions that some of us should be asking is, why should we be paying a governor, giving him security, when the functions for which we employed him to run, he's not running them? So you see, those are basic questions that some of us should be asking. But we are not going into that because that becomes a political issue that is too complicated to deal with at this point in time.
Is this a power struggle? A show of might, and who is more powerful and who is not?
So at this point in time, he knew that he had transferred most of his powers anyway. You see, once you transfer powers, you transfer functions, it means you transfer money. It means you transfer staff. It means you have no people to dictate to. We are used to seeing CECs being fired. That cannot happen anymore. So at that point in time, you can't tell anyone that this is the authority that I have over Nairobi. However, you still can say I'm the governor of Nairobi and move around Nairobi without being stopped because you still have some legitimacy in terms of being called a governor. And by extension, you can go into markets and fumigate those places and talk to people about COVID-19. But once COVID-19, for example, is done away with and it's behind us, then the reality of what exactly or who exactly is in charge of Nairobi will start showing up. At that point is when we will know, for example, whom to ask questions when the services are not being offered. Then Governor Sonko will continue playing politics. For him, he's much better than Waititu because he will be relevant for some time until 2022, when, assuming that the charges against him will not have succeeded or will have been dropped or something will have happened. But if that doesn't happen, then of course he will at least have survived to be called a governor until 2022.
I'm looking at what the Major General Body said, and I quote, Governor Mike Sonko personally signed the deed of transfer and handed over the 4 key functions to the national government, and I am the one in charge of those functions now. I officially took them over on March 18th, 2020, and on top of that, the Nairobi County Assembly had a special sitting where they approved the handover of those functions to me. I'm looking at this from the policy point of view. When you have transfer of functions, should we have restrictions in terms of who does what based on the deed of transfer, the agreement that was signed, in the sense that the Major General sticks to what is in the papers and the governor sticks to what is left out of the paper. When we have that being implemented, should you also see at the end of the day an overlap in terms of roles because we have county workers who are supposed to be fulfilling the mandates of both key individuals. In your view, what do you think about that, Mundalo?
I think we don't have workers who are supposed to be fulfilling the interests of two individuals. I think at that point there we get it very wrong.
Okay.
Because the functions that were handed over to Nairobi Metropolitan are handed over plus the staff. And therefore those staff, which are about 6,000 or so, those staff cease being employees who are answerable to the Nairobi governor and become answerable to the Director General. So there is no overlap there.
There's no overlap.
There is no overlap.
And
the people who are now answerable to the Nairobi governor are the people whose functions he then remains with. Those are the people who then he can then dictate. And I think also the other function that he also has is, I think, is the one who represents Nairobi on the COG, and not the DG. But in terms of overlap, there is no overlap. Maybe Ram, what I would say is the Director General body should be careful of one thing. It is usually not very easy to be a popular manager. And anyone criticizing a management is always the popular person. And what Mike Sonko is doing here is Mike Sonko is pulling the Director General into the game he knows how to play, and that is politics. And once Mike Sonko is able to pull the Director General into politics, he will outsmart him. Because trust me, the Director General is not coming to be a miracle worker, that tomorrow all services in Nairobi will be at 100%. And therefore Sonko will take the position that he had before, the position that he had as senator. And that is how he was able to bring down Kidero.
Governor Kidero.
Now, that is the exact position that Sonko is positioning himself for once again. And that is why he's throwing jibes at the Director General and slowly pulling him over into the political side. So the Director General ceases being a military person and becomes a politician. And once he joins politics by starting to give answers to Mike Sonko, then it's unfortunate that he will be very unpopular in a very short time.
But I'm looking at it from yet another angle, because the issuance of letters of redeployment were to all county workers, all. Does it mean the governor is left with none? No one in the county to help him in implementing the roles and the responsibilities left in other functions that he was given? Manyasi?
I have not checked whether those letters were actually meant for all staff or not. But transfer of functions under the Constitution is provided for, even though some of us still had a problem with that, because when Nairobians elected Sonko, we were consulted after Sonko had signed off. And therefore, we were being consulted over a decision that had already been taken. But having said that, I guess one of the things, and I want to echo what my brother has said about the playing of politics around who is now policing who. The interesting bit around this discussion is that unless you have a way of making sure that Governor Sonko keeps quiet, it's going to be very difficult for the Director General to execute his functions. Remember, when you have a politician, one of the things that the Director General will have to deal with is corruption. Another thing that he will need to deal with, for example, is that there were accusations around so many people that were benefiting because of the governor being the governor of Nairobi. And there were so many casuals, as was being alleged, that there were so many people that were being paid as casuals for so long, and yet they were being paid by the county. Remember, all those things are likely to cease. And therefore, by just that mere fact that the people who are benefiting directly will not be benefiting anymore, there will automatically be a lot of noise around Nairobi. And so, because of that, you will find the DG being unpopular. However, that will not mean that the DG will not execute his mandate and deliver services. And I think the more long-term will be if he is able to deliver services to Nairobians in the next 24 months, assuming that the coronavirus goes away sooner. because if it doesn't, that will even add more injury to the very complicated work that he already has. Because what we have is that Nairobi is going to be the most affected if the COVID-19 pandemic takes longer, because of the very nature of the way Nairobi is demographized. So having said that, I guess the challenge right now is to the president of this country to support the DG as much as possible. And the support will also mean that the politics of it will be handled by other people and not the DG, so that the DG is left with the responsibility of delivering services to Nairobians. Otherwise, if he's dragged into politics, so the other people like the Senator of Nairobi can play politics with Sonko, and the DG can play the service provision to Nairobians.
I'm looking at the numbers. We have more than 6,000 employees of Nairobi County were summoned or were called for. And the Director General said the exercise will go up to Friday, the 10th of April, that is this week, where they intended to have handed over letters to 3,000 workers at the rate of 600 staff per day. But now I'm looking at the because we are finding out whether Nairobians will be given or the responsibilities of our leaders will be well put by them to Nairobians. Will Nairobians receive the services they need, and how will they receive the services they need? But now, in terms of the budget, because for you to receive service, there has to be a budget. Nairobi Metropolitan Service will now be in control of half of City Hall's budget. We are talking about 36.9 billion shilling for 2019-2020 financial year. What do you think about this, Mundalo?
Of course, in terms of service provision, as you put it, the common Nairobi person will have a little bit of a problem because they wouldn't know what to do where and who to address on what issue. Especially because I even don't know whether the offices of the Nairobi Metropolitan are even in public domain. Maybe you may know that, but I don't think they're in public domain. So the common Nairobi voter would not actually know where to go for what reason. That is a big problem. But in terms of budget, to me, I feel the Nairobi governor wins in terms of budget, because if we have the bulk of the functions handed over to Nairobi Metropolitan, and the Nairobi Metropolitan has half the budget, which leaves him with the other half to do the non-essential things, then trust me, he might be able to give the DG a run, a good run for his management, because he has a lot of money to do very little things with, and the Nairobi Metropolitan is the one paying staff. And so if you give him a lot of money to do licensing of dogs, fumigation, and a few of the staff he has, I'm sure he has the political appointees who cannot be easily moved to the Nairobi Metropolitan, because those are political appointments. So those ones will remain within the county. So if he has that money, and being a politician, and having known Mike Sonko for the duration that we've known him, it will not be very easy for the Director General to put up a battle against, one, a governor with half a budget with very little functions, and two, a governor who is a populist, and three, a person who is a philanthropist. Quote, yes. So that's why he would rather, the DG would rather concentrate on his work and just perform his functions. But if he pulls himself, or he accepts to be pulled into the political space, as we are seeing Mike Sonko doing, then he will not have a very easy time, despite the fact that we know he's not a politically interested person, so he wouldn't mind being popular or unpopular, but he would rather not join that war, because what Sonko is out to do, Sonko is out to ensure that the Nairobi Metropolitan does not succeed in its work.
You're sure of that?
So that by 2022, the common voter will have seen that Sonko was better. It's not a question of being sure or not, but it's a question of how political games play.
What about
and politicians
the
are always out to ensure that others do not achieve, so that then it becomes their re-election their re-election plan. So it is not a question of surety or not, but I would think, politically speaking, that would be what the Mike Sonko would be interested in.
So in your view, it is that the DG should fail at the expense of the people because of the interests of the government?
Ram, let me tell you one thing. Even if I was the one who is in Sonko's shoes, there was no way I would have gone all out to support the DG to succeed, because it makes you a failure. That's number one. So
if you are in his shoes, ungefanya hivyo.
So
I wonder.
There's no politician on earth, whether it's Obama, whether it's whoever. There's no politician on earth who will make the other person shine at the expense of the political career. That is like what Charity Ngilu one day said, negotiating yourself out of power. So you do not do that. And so it's not in within his responsibility to take care of that. It's in the mandate of someone else to take care of that, because that will definitely happen. So that's why initially I said it's the responsibility of the Senator of Nairobi, and the President of this country and the machinery of the national government to make sure that they take care of that bit. Because the DG is not a politician. And the governor of Nairobi, who is Mike Sonko, will ensure, and he will do all that it takes to ensure that he remains relevant. The only way he remains relevant is to ensure that he paints the DG black. That's the only way. And so it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when that has to happen. But I want to say something about the functions. One of the things that we need to know, and I will put it in two ways. Number one is that the functions that were transferred together with the budgets that were approved. And
so it was necessary for them to even transfer this billion?
Automatically. So if you are running a function, then the budgets that were approved will also move with that function. And that's why the staff are also moving with that function. So resources mean both, and the DJ also mentioned, it means staff, it means resources in terms of money that were for those functions. It means if there are vehicles and assets were also moving with that function. So anything that touched on that function moved. And so the DG will be responsible for those budgets. What I'm worried about is, for example, in the next financial year, assuming that the governor of Nairobi, who is Sonko, has a way of manipulating the system such that the budgets that will be discussed and passed by the county assembly will be such that they will be so skewed towards the functions of Sonko other than the functions that have been transferred in the next financial year, then that will be the beginning of problems for the DG.
All right, and remember, this is in regards to the Nairobi Metropolitan. Remember, Uhuru Kenyatta banned the movement by road, rail, by road, rail, or air in and out of Nairobi Metropolitan area. This ban started on Monday, and we are expecting the ban to start today in Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa counties. As we bring this discussion to a close, you have, just to give you just 30 seconds each, do you think this move to ban movement in and out of Nairobi is the right move for us? Just a yes or no answer. Alex?
I wish I could explain, but yes, it's a necessary evil. That's what I want to say. Okay. Because of one thing, is that if 80% of the infections are coming from Nairobi, almost 80% from what we've been told, then it only makes sense that you don't distribute this across the country, considering that we have only been able to test 5,000 people.
Okay, now
so our capacity cannot allow anything that is beyond what we already
just
have.
Yes or no to you, Mundalo. Is this a good move?
It is
yes or no?
It is a yes for me, but it would have been a bigger yes if this had even happened 2 or 3 weeks ago.
All right. Yeah. To bring an end to this discussion on The Viewpoint, I was joined by Alex Manyasi, who is a policy analyst, and Advice Mundalo, political and communications expert. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for creating time with us this morning. The Viewpoint ends now. That result brings us to a close, even on Good Morning Kenya. See you again tomorrow morning. May God bless you. God bless the work of your hands. My name is Aguko.
Could this be the guitar that changed the course of rock history? In the bustling dockside city of Liverpool, Harold Harrison went out to buy his son a harmonica, but came back instead with this guitar. George Harrison took to the guitar with relish and set about learning a few chords. As fate would have it, 6 months later, George would meet a lad named John Lennon, and the fate of rock history would take an unavoidable turn for the better. It didn't take long for the boys to gain success. 1962 saw John, Paul, George and Ringo sign their first major contract. Things were about to get a whole